All right, so welcome everyone to Ward 4's May 2024 public hearing and regular meeting. It is Wednesday the 15th, and we're getting started at 6:05 p.m. And before we go into our public hearing item, I was contacted by the 8-3 Community Affairs Unit. We're going to have our commanding officer, Captain Poggioli, do a report before we get started. Welcome, Captain.
We're on. Good evening, everyone. Dave Poggioli, 8-3 Precinct Commanding Officer. How is everybody tonight? Thank you for coming out. You know, weather's not terrible, not terrible. Couple of things I want to touch on this evening. This morning's clergy council meeting, we just took a moment in remembrance. On May 10th, we lost Chief Gerald Nelson, former patrol borough commander of Brooklyn North. He preceded Chief Jeff Madry. He was the sole individual designated as the chief of Brooklyn North. He oversaw all 10 precincts in this area, an icon. He was ill for a little while, and he's passed on. So I just wanted to pass along to everybody because obviously Community Board 4 has been a long-standing organization, and they definitely had a relationship with Chief Nelson at that time. So just to pass that on. A couple of things I want to circle back to. Two things that were brought to the attention of myself and my staff in this meeting. One was an illegal parking condition along some of the avenues, Myrtle Avenue, Wyckoff, Irving, along that area. And then there was a question regarding smoke shops. So I'm going to update everybody in regard to those two concepts now. The illegal tow operations, we like I said from day one, we're here to be a responsive organization. People come, take times out of their day, they sit in here, they join us virtually, and they bring conditions to us that they feel suitable to be addressed by the police department, and we take that very, very seriously. And it's going to be my mantra, like something's brought to us, we're going to go out and address it, and then we're going to report back to our stakeholders of what took place. So after last month's meeting, we went out and, you know, happy to report, we put some effort over 48 hours towards the end of April, and we were able to successfully remove 16 vehicles from those corridors and intersections that were brought up in these meetings last month. So that was taken care of for you. You know, hopefully we're seeing a difference. But listen, if it's still prevalent, please continue to introduce it to us. But like I said, we went out there, not ignorant or naive to what your requests were, and those were taken care of. Smoke shops, I promised after last time that I'd have a little more information. Smoke shop enforcement in the city of New York. I spoke about some pending legislation that was coming forward. As of May 4th, I'm just to update everybody in regards to that. We're able to take a larger role in some of the smoke shop enforcement in the city of New York through and being deputized and working alongside the sheriff's organization. They have the ability now to go out day of, conduct inspections, and if they don't reach certain criteria, they have the ability to padlock establishments on the spot. So that's a big, big change from the prior process where just that a process to go through to get to that point. Now the sheriff's department working along can go in, and if you know they fail certain criteria and things like that, they're eligible to be padlocked. Now listen, with that padlock, right, there's still a court proceeding that supersedes that, right? That everybody's do their due process, but successfully, if those processes seen through, those locations could be shuttered for up to 12 months. The department just started this rollout. Just numbers wise, 96 smoke shops were visited through this new model. Since May 4th, 75 of those 96 smoke shops were immediately shuttered. So that's a big, big different response. Again, you bring something to us, and we're here to address it. Locally now in the 8-3, what we're seeing. Last time we spoke about what? Car breaks, and I asked everybody to go. We got to take what we spoke about here and now bring it back into our communities, bring it back into our group messages, right? We go back to our blocks, talking to our neighbors. We have to take the dialogue that's spoken about in here and multiply it. And that's what I rely on everybody in this room to do, because that's we make tangible differences. Currently, what we're seeing spikes in now, residential burglaries, but driven thefts out of common areas, right? That's the month thing that I see driving some of the conditions here in the 8-3. So what does that mean? Means we need to go back and we need to sit with like our tenant associations in these multiple dwelling buildings, and maybe we can allocate a space within these buildings or UPS, right? There's a safe storage location within the building that these packages could be left in. I live in a building myself in Queens, and the last thing I want to do after working all day is come home and not find my package, right? I'm sure everybody could relate to that concept. So it's something that I think we could, hey, we could sit down, maybe we storage area, and we could have our Amazon packages, UPS, things to that effect left in that area. But just on an enforcement angle, to speak about that small spike, don't worry, like conditions are addressed. There's been a 300% increase in arrests related to burglary over the past month. So we see the rise in some reported incidents, burglaries, package thefts, bond rate, and to correlate, we also have a 300% increase in arrests related to that matter. I know you guys have a long agenda ahead of you, but obviously I'm here to take any questions from the room.
Please grab a mic.
Christian Celeste, board member. Can you say more about the jurisdiction of the sheriff's department and how they work alongside PD?
Good too. Right. So the sheriff is still the lead agency in regards to these smoke shop inspections, but now there's a new process in place where there's almost like a deputizing of the police department, so we could go in together and have that immediate response. Like I said, brand new, really just May 4th to May 5th. 96 locations have been visited, 75 were shuttered post those inspections right there on site. No, he's got the mic. He's got it.
Is that deputization specific to the smoke shops?
Yeah. So it's specific to the smoke shops because it starts with the sheriff's office, right? It's always been that lead agency, and now further inclusion department solely specific to smoke shops.
All right, folks, just for the meeting record, please state who you are. If you're a board member, please state your name and that you're a board member. If you're a member of the public, you can identify yourself if you're affiliated, but we just need to know who you are for minute-taking purposes. Thank you. That was Joe from the Friends of Irving Square Park.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Felix Ceballos, CB4. I want to say about you mentioned before, I can see that about the package from any agency bring to any home. In my block, I see a lot of complaint before, but now it's a lot of progress, like you say. People, all of them, they find the packet they receive. It's a lot of progress. Thank you.
No, that's good to hear. And, just to correspond with that 300% increase, very important. We meet monthly here. We meet monthly at our clergy council, our community council. But in the interim of those monthly meetings, right, we're very, very active on our social media outlets via Twitter, Facebook, things to that effect. So, we may leave here today and have a success story to tell tomorrow. I don't want to wait 30 days to come in front of everybody and tell that success social media pages. You'll see over the past 30 days where we've, distributed somebody, a wanted individual, and then followed up and said that person has since been apprehended. And there you go. Like you see a condition, address the condition, and then as this job, you see progress.
Anyone else?
Hello, Captain. Hi, everyone. Jessica Tiburcio, board member. Just want to touch on the 3 points briefly. The first is the smoke shops. You mentioned 76 were closed.
75 out of 96.
75. So
Citywide. It was just a citywide approach. Nothing localized here. That's citywide numbers within the past 7 days.
I was just going to ask, why weren't the other 21s closed and whether you know about the procedures in place for that.
As far as I'm informed, I could get the specific criteria that those outstanding ones didn't meet and bring that back to you. But obviously, the day of, like whatever the criteria to staying open, they, whether it is the other particular business they engage in and things like that. But I could follow up and get that information of why that like 20 or so remained open.
Perfect. And do you know how many of the closed ones were in Bushwick? You mentioned 0.
So they haven't made their way into Bushwick. They're locally in Brooklyn North. They've hit Williamsburg and Greenpoint, and now they're slowly making their way into the boroughs. We actually had allocated an additional officer to the precinct recently just for like administrative, specifically in regard to this.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hopefully we could hear more about when you guys hit Bushwick
Absolutely.
at a
Yep.
later date.
Yep.
And then the burglaries, so you mentioned car burglaries and then packages. Just want to know what else is in place in terms of lighting conditions, for example, on behalf of what the city or the precinct is doing, and whether you're speaking to landowners for the packages being stolen.
Right. So that first point I broke up was something we discussed last time in regards to vehicle, like car burglaries. That was a condition that we brought up last time. And, you know, I wanted to highlight that because we've seen a decrease. So obviously everybody in this room did take, right? What did we talk about last time? We're seeing the vehicles unlocked. You know, like we were taking these incidents where the windows weren't even being broken. It was just somebody who's walking around, pulling door handles, found an open door, went in and removed property. And to the second point of, yeah, we engage everyone, right? If there's something in regards to a lighting that street side that we're seeing in the area, you bring that to us and we'll bring it to our partners and with other city agency needs to be, you know, I know we've done things before with DOT for tree pruning and things like that. So our street is more illuminated. But if there's specific areas that you want us to take a look at, you let us know and we'll walk those streets with you in with our crime prevention officer and we'll get those addressed as well. But for the message, yeah, the message goes to everybody who sits in this room, and we share information, crime preventive through social media. That message. You're welcome.
Joanna Fuentes, CB4. I think it's a really good idea. Maybe we can get the post office here and kind of collaborate in reference to, because in order for them to get into the building, you know that the post office has a key. There was something that Amazon was doing in reference to reaching out to the owners of the buildings, but for some reason that program didn't go through. I'm not sure.
Okay.
They were reaching out to the owners, but I guess the owners didn't feel comfortable with giving Amazon access to that. But maybe you know, reaching out to the
Yeah.
post office and speaking to them about what's going on. I mean,
Yeah, it's a
everybody,
great
this is
idea.
a collaborative, you
Sure,
know. Thank you.
absolutely. Yep.
Thank you, Cap.
Everyone.
Thank you. And just a note, folks, in terms of illegal smoke shops, we received an inquiry from the mayor's office. We do not have a comprehensive list because we only go based off of complaints that we get. So if you have a complaint about an illegal smoke shop on your block, in your area that you randomly see as you're in the neighborhood, please let us know and we're happy to pass that along. They will be in Bushwick soon. We would like to give them a comprehensive list of any issue or problematic locations that are here. All right.
And yeah. All the office confidential, and we'll follow up. Also, sometimes when myself get involved, when somebody takes a package, it's disheartening to see that if I caught the guy taking the package and I ring the bell and I know the person that it is, that the person turns around and doesn't want to press charges and says, "Oh, I called the company, is going to reimburse me. Here I am doing my due diligence," and they don't want to press charges. And so guess what? Keep taking the boxes, because if you're not going to report it, then they don't have a knowledge that is being done. And before you know it, he breaks into your house and empty your house out. Then now you want to report it, that same guy. So we got to work together to make sure. No, a lot of people don't like we used to call them the police, but you know, be careful what you wish for, because when it bothers you, then you're gonna say, oh, well, I got nothing. So we gotta work together to make sure that we catch that, because I did that myself. And when I went to retrieve the box, the lady told me I'll call the insurance. I also put my life on the line for a box. Now I know now, next time, so I wanna make sure that, that you do call, that if it does, you know, you gotta press charges, because if you don't, he's gonna take everybody's boxes.
I just want to make a statement since you said that, Mr. Camacho. I have footage of the individual taking my package and my next door's package to the captain. What do I do in that predicament? It happened a few days back, but we have footage on camera where the person took my package and went to my next door neighbor and got their package, and we have it on video. But we didn't report it, just like he's saying we should, but we didn't.
So,
That's cool.
so yeah, please follow up any personal situations.
Correct.
Please be mindful, this is a public meeting. We do not know who is listening in on these meetings. Feel free to contact the PD directly, speak to them while they're here. And as a reminder, please just introduce yourself for the record. All right. I believe there are no other questions on this topic. We have our assembly member with us this evening, I believe, Assembly Member Davila. Welcome.
Thank you, Celeste. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'm glad that our commanding officer was able to touch up a little bit on the legislation of the cannabis shops. So I'll give you a little bit of background on what we were able to pass this year in terms of cannabis. So it allows New York City to padlock immediately illegal cannabis businesses who pose an imminent threat to health and safety. It allows the taking away of other licenses such as alcohol, cigarettes, or lottery if they sell illegal cannabis. It increases penalties for those who remove padlocks or open closed businesses. Requires a landlord to evict commercial tenants if they operate illegal cannabis sales. That is part of what is happening with the cannabis situation in my district. We do have a list of shops in the Bushwick area as well as Williamsburg. A conversation transpired between the governor's office and I, and Bushwick and Williamsburg are two of their main targets because, yeah, cannabis shops are opening up like weed. Furthermore, with the environmental package, we were able to allocate 500 million for clean water, 150 million to invest in new swimming facilities and lifeguards, 40 million to create the Resilient and Ready program, and 15 million to help localities fend off flooding, which is a problem in my district. 15 million to plant 25,000 trees in New York State, which we pretty much need. I'm just reading off a couple of things that we did. It was a very, very tough budget this year. I know that people talked about housing and what we were doing with housing. Unfortunately, the governor had her heart set on what she had her heart set, despite of the fight, right? We were up here for 2 weeks trying to really, after the budget, fight. So with helping families, the budget includes 350 million supplemental Empire State Child Tax Credit, an additional 2 million for the Double Up food box programs, which we can be used at farmers markets. So in other words, if you go to a farmers markets, they will match your dollar to another dollar, so you can get some more healthier foods. and 1.5 million for diaper banks. We know that a lot of parents are suffering with not being able to provide diapers for their children. An additional 58 million for hunger prevention and nutritional assistance program. An additional 5 million for summer youth employment programs, and additional dollars for food banks and food pantries, and additional $4 million for settlement houses. That's just a little bit of the $243 billion budget that we were able to pass this year. In terms of the budget, does anybody have any questions? Okay, so Juan, my name is, can you, somebody pose the question? Hold on, there's a lot. Okay, if Juan can get up and ask the question, because there's like 90 questions. Is there a Juan there, or can you
So-
send the?
It's unclear. We don't have anyone in person that's raising their hand at this point. Any questions from the floor that I'm missing? I'm not sure if there's anyone on the Zoom chat, but we can check.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's some chats, yeah.
Okay, I don't believe there's anything for you, Assembly Member. I'm trying to confirm with Kim. Is there anything directed for the Assemblywoman Kim? Okay, no, there was just someone dropping their contact information. There's nothing in the chat about the budget.
I will review that. I also want to close with a very brief comment about a letter that was discussed at the last community board meeting. A letter that was offered to the community board with my name on it, and hence this is the only reason I am addressing it. I just want to make sure that I clarify this letter that was put out. Most of everything in that letter was untrue. It was not factual. I was taken back that it was read by the community board, because I would hope that in our meetings that we would absolutely fact check before we put information out to the public. I have no issues. I continue to service my district. I am relentless when it comes to my constituents. And I have no doubt that if neither one of you got into problems, that I'd be the first one standing up. And so my colleagues do the same thing too. Just be reassured that you are, the representation in our district is a good one, and I'm proud of it. And so I just wanted to clarify that. Please, before you read a letter out with someone's name, make sure that you fact check. I want to thank everyone for allowing me to speak. I thank you. I'm in Albany right now. I'm going to continue the people's work. So God bless all of you. Thank you. Nothing else.
Assemblywoman, no one read your letter out here. One, that's absolutely not true. No one read your letter. No one knew.
Let me clarify that. To the community.
Let me clarify. Not at the full board.
Right.
It was not disclosed
But
at
it
the full
was
board meeting.
offered.
It was not disclosed at the full board meeting.
Listen to me.
That's absolutely not
even-
true. And
No,
we
no,
gave
no, no.
it
Well,
to
wait.
the committee for them.
Can I finish, please? I promise I will, you can say whatever it is that you can say. I just find it extremely highly irresponsible to even speak or offer a letter without facts. If there are any further questions that anybody has for me, you better believe your bottom dollar that I am going to be factual about everything. Okay? It's just that you leave room for imaginations to run when you say these things, right? And furthermore, I wasn't present. So I would have liked the opportunity to be present when these things happen. Or my colleagues, if anybody says anything negative about my colleagues or they send a letter, even with you, Chairman, you know, we want to have the respect to make sure that you can speak up on it. That's all I'm asking, for the courtesy to do that. That is the respectful thing to do. I'm not trying to be confrontational with anyone. I'm just stating facts. Okay?
And,
Go ahead,
and,
Mr.
and,
Chairman.
and I understand that. I just wanted to, you indicated that, there were X amount of money, for trees that, they're gonna, is that gonna come with, money for, trimming? Because we haven't have our trees, the more we plant, eventually the trees are gonna grow. And all the time, parks always saying that they don't have, and every time, 5 years or 4 years, and y'all know every time it rains hard, and 5 year plan, we got Woodbine, we got a couple of blocks that are full, and the tree are growing out into the sidewalks and into people's houses, that we got a lot of complaints. So I know, that trees are good for us, but I hope that money comes to prune the tree, because when they grow all out, and the wind hits them and you don't prune them where the wind could come out, it cracks and breaks into people's houses. It breaks the foundation. So, we want to make sure that if there are going to be, that there's some money, we hope that there'll be some money for, trimming these trees along, Bush, because I know for a fact that we have a lot of areas, that needs to be pruning, and we go to parks and they say it's a 5 year plan and there's no money, or the contract they had before that the park department put in, embezzled some money, so they're doing an investigation. So we lost out on pruning. So we want to make sure that we want the trees, but we want to make sure that, there's a pruning aspect of that. Because I know there's a program now that, we could, but there's only amount of square footage that you can do in regards to pruning. When you get into the pruning aspect, that Parks Department have a program out there. You're only supposed to do X amount. You can't do more. So I hope, we can get some money for the pruning. Thank you, Assemblywoman.
Well, I have to answer that. Yeah, as you are aware, most of the money that's trickled down to the state for things like that goes down to the city. So the city, the different commissioners and the city is responsible for putting that money where it's supposed to be. We don't directly assign like 50 million for pruning. We don't do that. What we do is say, here, we're going to give the money to plant 25,000 trees throughout the state. It's not just Bushwick or Williamsburg. Please just know that it's not just Bushwick and Williamsburg. It's the entire state. That's a question that you have to pose to the council member. She's there and she probably can get you the information you need.
Hi, Assembly Member Angaini, Housing and Land Use Chair for CB4. You had mentioned housing. Nice to see you. The housing agenda of the government, or governor rather, was maybe not what people wanted. I don't think we have time in this meeting because we have a pretty full agenda. Everybody wants to know a lot more about that. There's huge, important issues. Some of us have been following it, just reading the news, that the entire Bushwick community would like to know a lot more about that. So perhaps either the next meeting or soon, we can schedule some time to learn about the state housing agenda. But I think because we're hearing about the City of Yes housing opportunity in the public hearing today, we probably don't have time for a full breakdown, but that would be very valuable. Thank you.
Absolutely, anytime. I do have like some bits and pieces, but we're not going to discuss that. I just wanted to add and say that Bushwick was carved out of the piece of legislation that allows landlords to bring up their basements up to par because of the flooding. It was carved out, and I fought to bring it to Bushwick. So just be reassured that there is also going to be money for landlords to be able to redo their basements so tenants are safe, that they're not living in illegal basements. So, you know, that was part of it. And Bushwick was completely carved out of it. East New York got it, but Bushwick was carved out. And I made sure that we got it in the budget. Okay. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
You please grab the mic. And note, folks, we have yet to start our public hearing. So if we start our public hearing late, then we will be here late. So I don't say that to discourage questions and comments, but just want to be mindful of the fact that we have a limited amount of time together this evening. Any other questions, comments? Anything on Zoom? Mr. Ceballos?
Felix Ceballos, CB4, Assemblywoman Marisa Davila. My question is, you say before, it's no budget right now. It's no money for housing, and housing. We need a lot here in Bushwick, in our district. But you there, and you involved in all those money they had to approve. Is any possibility in the future maybe we can get money for housing? I know the mayor announced late in the future going to be a lot of housing for everybody, but I want to know if you can say something about that. Thank you.
I didn't say that there was no money for housing. What I said was that we came back communities like mine, we really want more. We fight for more. But at the end of the day, it's the governor and the speaker and the majority leader that makes those decisions. I'll give you some bullet points on housing. We are giving 140 million for New York City Housing Authority, 80 million for Mitchell-Lama Preservation Home Ownership, 40 million for homeowner protection programs to protect homeowners who are facing default or their mortgages, and 15 million in additional funding for eviction prevention legal services. So there are some things in housing that are available. I know that you guys have a whole agenda. I don't want to continue to speak, but if you ask, I'm gonna have to tell you what it really is. Okay, but I can get you that, Felix. Okay.
All right. I believe we have one other question on Zoom. I'm going to ask that person just drop the information in the chat and we will pass that along. We also have our council member with us this evening, and we have yet to actually start our meeting. So I'm going to have the Councilmember Sandy Nurse. Thank you again, Assemblywoman, for joining us from Albany.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, y'all. I'll be very quick because I know that thing is coming and I know how dense it is. So I just had a few things. Today was our public education hearing. We're fighting for restorations of early childhood education, protecting our social workers and all of our, part-time staffers who work in our schools. I didn't see any folks from Bushwick. I did the challenge last time from you all, but there's still 3 days to submit testimony. So if you want to write written testimony from the board or as yourself, advocating for protecting public education, we could always use your voice there. As you know, well, maybe you don't know, I think I mentioned it last time, there are over 300 open early childhood education seats in this area. They need to be filled. They're free seats. They're anybody who has a kid, 3K, pre-K, you qualify. So we want to fill these seats because if we don't use these, they're going to use it as justification to take it away from us. So I really encourage us to spread the word. I know our team has been doing the best we can with the limited resources we have, but we want to get our kids from the neighborhood enrolled in these education programs. The last thing, to respond to the tree piece, We do know that we need pruning. We've known it for 2.5 years. We've been waiting for a year for the FBI investigation with the tree pruner to be dealt with. In the meantime, we took action the best way we could. We worked with Trees New York. They hired a bunch of young people from not only this neighborhood, but surrounding neighborhoods. They pruned over 200 trees last summer in Bushwick, and they took care of it the best they can. So that was our solution in lieu of the parks being able to utilize the contractor they had. Trees New York is not able to do this program this year because they're a small organization. It was actually a big lift for them, but we thought we could problem solve. So hopefully we get that pruning money. You're also welcome to come to the parks executive budget hearing and advocate for money for our parks department, which has 0 people working there basically. And then lastly, just wanted to update you on the flooding piece. Knickerbocker was included in the case studies. There's been a ton of flooding. We've spent a lot of time and energy on this. There are some proposals in the works, but all of the findings that DEP came up with should be released in a report coming soon. And so we're very eagerly waiting for the action steps that department will take. But I just wanted to make sure I brought it up since flooding was brought up tonight. And then last thing, one of the things that we're asking for, we have a budget campaign for this city budget called Homes Now, Homes for Generation. We're asking for $2.5 billion in capital funding for 2 programs. One is Open Doors program. It's a program that's been utilized here in Bushwick for new construction of affordable apartment ownership, limited equity. So co-ops, low-income co-ops. We did some of that with the South Bushwick Homes project yet to be constructed, but we're hoping for more capital for those when there is options for new construction. The other program is called Neighborhood Pillars. This is a program that has not had funding. They haven't been utilizing it since COVID, but this is a program for preservation. So buildings that are rent stabilized, that whatever reason the landlord falls out of the ability to manage it or has too many violations, it goes to a nonprofit. This is the program that would provide the capital to do the renovations to bring the building up to some kind of dignified living standard. So we really need the money. It's $2.5 billion over 4 years. And so we'll be probably reaching out. I know we missed the deadline to get here to ask for support. It's okay, we're gonna advocate, but we're pushing really hard for that. It's the #1 capital ask for the council for the budget. And so that's something we're working on. I won't say anything else because I know we have a lot, but I'll be here for the rest of the meeting. So if you have questions, you can come up to me or pull me off to the side.
Good evening, Annette Spellin from Community Board 4. I thought I heard something about you sponsoring a job fair this weekend. Can you give us some more information on that, please?
Yes. We have a jobs fair over at Maxwell CTE, including building trades, construction trades. We have companies who work in renewable energy, in the green sector. There'll be a couple city agencies. FDNY will be there. It's right across from the PAL at 127 Penn, Maxwell CT. Our first year we hosted it at Transit Tech. Now we're hosting it there. Next year we hope to host it here at Bushwick campus. So it'll be from 11 to 2. Please come. You don't need to RSVP.
Good evening, Joanna Bennett, CB4. I have a question. I'm very happy to hear about monies being allocated for housing and that new housing is being built. In the meantime, are there any plans to open up Section 8, which is closed for applicants? The other thing is city FEPs that's being overcrowded. So if this housing is being built, but then people need money to qualify to these housing. The other thing is on New York City, on New York Housing Connect, where people are allowed to apply. Many of the people who have these available apartments are also saying people have to have good credit ratings. So how are poor people who then maybe have a housing subsidy program, they're being disqualified because they don't have good credit ratings? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I think that needs to be examined because it's another way of disqualifying a certain element of our population.
Short and the Section 8 vouchers, I thought there was a date for they were opening up again. I'll get back to you. I could have sworn I saw that they were opening it up again. But I will make sure to get that. The city FEPS, the council passed legislation to expand city FEPS exponentially, essentially from the moment you are going to be evicted. We could get you enrolled into a city FEPS voucher program. The mayor does not want to implement this program. He says it's too expensive. And so the city council, along with several other service providers, are actually suing the administration to force the legislation. I understand, but I can follow up with you for it because I know we're diving into this. I definitely I can pull off to the side and talk with you more, but we have been trying to expand city FEPS. We passed legislation a year ago, and we wish it would be implemented.
Oh, this is the last one. We gotta move on.
I heard about pruning a lot. Oh, my name is Cecilia Fabian, board member. My question is, the pruning, I heard enough, but I own a home here in Bushwick, and the roots on the trees damaging our houses. And last year, for instance, I had a really big damage in my house. I had to pay $12,000. I called the city. The city said it was not their fault. It's a tree, it's nature, but we're getting all the trees planted. And now I have to pay $13,000 to fix the bottom of my house.
It's a big issue. I know there was money put aside for some tree work and sidewalk work last year. I don't know. I mean, clearly they're not rolling it out fast enough. I'm sorry to say, but I can follow up with you offline to see what we could try to do. Unfortunately, the city has not been really great on paying for things related to, forces of nature.
Last one, brief. Good evening, council member Jessica Tiburcio, board member. I have a quick question about neighborhood pillars and open doors. I attended the meeting on May 6th, and toward the end, they provided a campaign sign off for CB4. I didn't want to sign off without speaking to the board, but I just want to know if there's a deadline for that.
Well, some of this is my fault because I wanted to come and present to CB4 so that we could ask for a formal resolution, but given just the amount of budget hearings going on right now, we weren't really able to pull it off. But we can follow up. You can always sign on as an individual. And we would love to have you sign on as an individual. And anytime you can do that. Yeah, anytime. I mean, until the handshake happens, we're still negotiating for it. Thank you.
Just very. I also saw that presentation, Jessica, and I think that we are going to try to be talking about it at the Housing and Land Use Committee meeting. I think it is really important, but I also thank you and respect you for not unilaterally signing off for the CB. I think we got to work together and all connect on that. But I think it is incredibly important. I think it's something a lot of people are going to support. So we're going to see if we can figure something out.
And our presentation is here, city planning, City of Yes Planning Opportunities Citywide. Text amendment presentation.
It's 6:49.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming in today. We really appreciate your time and energy effort on this. Thank you again, Chair and District Manager De Leon, and also Council Member Nurse for coming, and Assembly Member as well for coming, and everybody in this here today with wonderful support. We have Josh Vogel, who's the team leader and also represents Community Board 4, 5, and 18. We have Juki Sai, who is the housing opportunity expert in our office, and he's also the borough liaison for 7 and 16. And then we have Joy Kim from council. So we do have a really great set of minds here with us today. And can we bring up slides, please? And can you hear me? Awesome. Okay, so I recommend that some folks come by the table here with District Manager De Leon and Chair Camacho, because there are some handouts full. But let's get on with it. Excited for you to hear the last proposal for this This is for housing opportunity. It's a citywide text amendment that would allow zoning changes for equitable housing development. This is the last of the 3 citywide text amendments as part of the City of Yes plan. These changes will enable a little more housing in every neighborhood by removing barriers to housing growth. These changes will address aspects of your housing shortage, where the vacancy rate for rental apartments is historically low at 1.4% citywide. Next slide, please. Or if we scroll down a little bit more here. Thank you. With the increasing demand of housing and slowly growing housing stock, households are smaller today than they used to be. This text amendment was referred out a few weeks ago on April 29th, and your input and votes are due at the end of June. So in a few weeks, and we're here to present the facts and to answer any questions and to go through the proposals that are most applicable and appropriate to your community district. Again, your votes are due at the end of June, prior to the public hearing in July. Next slide. So, and is providing the checklist that each of you should have, and we think it would be incredibly useful for you to go along with this presentation with the checklist. So you may notice that the checklist goes in order by low density to mid density to citywides. However, we will kind of reverse the order here based on applicability. But really, this worksheet is for you to think through some of these proposals as we talk about them. And it's for you to say, hey, you know what? I'm not a fan, or I am a fan. And at the end, you can tell council member Nurse why or why not. And that could help inform the proposal later on. We're at the first stage of the public process here. So we can go next to the next slide, please. And for those of you that are unfamiliar with housing policy and how housing works in New York City, many city agencies work on policies and programs that aim to address New Yorkers' housing needs. While the Department of Housing Preservation may assist in funding, operating, and supporting new housing through programs and subsidies, the Department of City Planning is responsible for the city zoning, which can loosen up the framework on where homes can be built and how large they can be built. Zoning controls the use and shape of housing, not how it could be funded. Next slide, please. And just a refresher, so for those of you that are unfamiliar with zoning, if you do have the presentation or if you can see, we are actually looking at 1420 Bushwick Avenue. Some of you are familiar with that location. That's where the committee meets, but it's an R6 district, within an R6 district, meaning, so the first letter R tells you the use and the classification. So you can have residential, which is R, or commercial, C, or manufacturing, M, which again will tell you the uses, what can be built. Then the number, right, R6, tells you the density, so how big you can build and what the building could look like. So we're gonna go through mid-density proposals first. Next slide, please. But before we get into the mid-density proposals, just a high-level overview of what we'd be introducing, which is exciting. The universal affordability preference, removing residential parking mandates, enabling more missing middle housing, legalization of accessory dwelling units, and a range of smaller proposals, including enabling conversion of non-residential buildings, allowing more small and shared apartments, and allowing for residential campuses to add height-limited buildings. Next slide, please. The majority of these proposals will be split by district applicability. Low-density residential districts, or R1 to R5, medium and high-density districts, R6 to R10, which you can see in orange in the map, which is the majority of your district. And so you see the blue spots, which is the low density, and mostly you have that on the northwest section of Bushwick. Next slide, please. We'll move on to medium density proposals to allow for missing middle housing. The first one we'll cover is a universal affordable preference, which is also applicable in your district. Next slide, please. UAP will be applicable in all high density districts shown in yellow and orange on this map. The areas in yellow are districts in which there is currently a greater FAR available for heirs or senior developments that's affordable for seniors. In these areas, the FAR for UAP will match the current heirs FAR. The areas in orange are districts in which there are currently not a greater FAR available for heirs developments. In these areas, we are going to create a similar bump in FAR, about 20% or more, for affordable and supportive housing. In all of these areas, the market rate FARs will not change from what they are today. For a developer to take advantage of the UAP, the extra FAR must be used for permanently income restricted housing. The biggest changes are allowing additional affordable housing that will last in perpetuity. Again, would recommend that you go to your worksheet and look at the UAP proposal as we go through this, since this is the most applicable. Next slide, please. Mentioned UAP will allow apartment buildings to be 20% larger, but only if the extra space is occupied by permanently affordable or supportive housing. It is modeled under current rules that allow bigger buildings for affordable senior housing in some neighborhoods. It will also allow incremental housing growth in neighborhoods and encourage affordable housing throughout the city, rather than concentrating it in a few neighborhoods. Next slide, please. And now we're going to get into affordability. So the affordability requirement for UAP will be 60% area median income. For those of you that are unfamiliar with AMI, it is a federal measure of affordability. Again, federal, so it's established by the federal government. At 60% AMI, or 83,000 plus, for a family of 3, UAP will serve lower income New Yorkers than the existing zoning tool, voluntary inclusionary housing. UAP will replace the VIH program, but mandatory inclusionary housing, which requires a percentage of new developments to be income restrictive, affordable housing, will continue to exist and be mapped when there are significant increases in residential density. UAP will also serve New Yorkers at even lower income levels through income averaging. This is the first time that we're introducing income averaging for affordability, where you can propose 30%, 60%, and 90%, and not just 60%, so long as there is an average of 60%. Next slide, please. Let's give a local example. Some of you might be familiar with the church over here. For example, if a church is located in an R6 district, wants to build affordable housing today, again, in an R6 district, they get an FAR of 3.0 because that's the existing, regardless of whether they're developing market rate or affordable housing. UAP, so currently we would be allowed to build 35 units under 3.0 FAR. Under UAP, they'd get 3.9 FAR. But the additional 0.9 FAR can only be used for affordable housing, which would result in 10 to 12 more affordable units. It may not sound like a lot, but it's functioning at a citywide scale. If every project has a few more affordable units, we can add a significant amount of affordable housing, and no single neighborhood will experience drastic changes. Next slide, please. Without UAP, the building is built according to the base FAR for market rate housing. So what you see on the left over here is an example of a market rate without UAP. In this case, it would be an 8-story building. On the right is what you would see with UAP, which would be 20% bigger, 2 additional stories or extra space for permanently affordable housing. In our preliminary calculations, we determined that had UAP been in place since 2014, with tax incentives and public subsidies and fully in support, and an additional 20,000 income restricted affordable homes could have been created and housed 50,000 New Yorkers. Next slide, please. So we did talk a little bit about MIH, my apologies. And based on this graphic, we're gonna kind of talk about how that's applicable in your district, or what changes that you will see through citywide. Next slide, please. We'll propose a few revisions to MIH, where we have a new option or a revised option, MIH option 3. Some of you that are familiar with MIH might be familiar with option 1 and 2, In this case, option 3 requires a 20% set aside at an average of 40% AMI, which is lower than option 1 and 2. Furthermore, FARs in MIH mapped areas will be bumped up to be equalized with MIH FARs. For example, R6A MIH will change from 3.6 to 3.9 FAR, while maintaining some of the same affordability requirements listed in the MIH mapping. Additionally, rules for 100% affordable projects will be streamlined. Next slide, please. We'll cover citywide proposals, which each are applicable to your district. This would make it easier to add new housing on large sites or campus infill, make it easier for underused non-residential buildings to be converted into housing, to introduce small and shared housing with shared kitchens or other common facilities, and lift costly parking mandates for your new housing. Again, I recommend going through your worksheet. Next slide, please. Oh, awesome, you're ready. Campus infill. Let's stay here for a little bit. So previous zoning rules designated sites with over 1.5 acres as campuses, which required special but limiting zoning restrictions, regardless of if they are at NYCHA campuses, private residential co-ops, to churches and schools. These sites often took place under tower in the park style regulations called height factor. Although we've developed a more recent set of regulations called quality housing that have height limits and result in better designed buildings with height limits, some sites, like NYCHA campuses and irregularly shaped lots, can't access these new rules. Your community board has numerous sites with applicability. Again, doesn't only mean NYCHA campuses, right? But some examples that we could give is the Hope Garden Apartments and Bushwick Garden Apartments. Next slide, please. So a little more about our proposal. So really, again, we're gonna remove the height factor zoning to provide more flexibility for future development because it's been very restrictive. So we are proposing 3 different modifications. In this case, again, the height limits, where campuses will be allowed to add buildings with existing height limits. For low density campuses or R1 to R5 campuses, new campus heights will be limited to 45 to 65 feet, depending on the district. Lot coverage. So housing will be allowed up to 50% of the campus area. And finally, distance between buildings. Now, housing can be built at 40 feet between buildings or 80 feet between buildings if they are over 125 feet tall. Next slide, please. Next, conversion of underused non-residential buildings. Today, outdated rules prevent underused non-residential buildings like offices from converting to housing. For example, many buildings that were constructed after 1961 or are located outside of the city's largest office centers cannot be converted to housing. Housing opportunity would make it easier for underused non-residential buildings such as offices to be converted into housing. Next slide, please. So here is where you see the applicability. Again, want to be mindful that we are moving the eligibility cutoff from 1961 or 1977, which is mostly concentrated into the central business district area of Manhattan or like Northwest Brooklyn, to 1991, which allows more applicability throughout the rest of your district and other parts of New York City. This allows for more recently constructed buildings to be converted into housing. Next slide, please. So a few rules that we're changing for conversions. So like I just mentioned, we're going to go beyond the office districts, right? Like we're kind of thinking beyond what the central core district could look like. And that way, a broader range of underutilized buildings like vacant schools or former religious buildings can be converted into housing. Next slide, please. So if we look here at the screen, we want to enable conversions to all types of housing, which includes supportive housing, shared housing, and dorms, which you can find in these slides. The next slide, please. So you can, it might be a little hard to tell from here, but in the previous slide, you can see the office was converted into housing and there's smaller housing units highlighted in yellow. Next slide, please. Small and shared housing. This proposal will provide more housing and a wider range of housing types, like small and shared apartments. These kind of homes have historically filled an important housing market through single room occupancy housing or SROs in the 1950s. However, it was criticized as attracting an unsavory population and was therefore made illegal in part due to prejudice and exclusion. Many years later, the city is recognizing the value and need. Many years later, the city is recognizing the value and need for alternative housing types to close the housing gap between families and younger New Yorkers. Today, we force too many people who want to live alone to find roommates and occupy family sizes in many parts of the city. What you see on the right is 244 East 106th Street in Spanish Harlem, which is part of HPD's Share NYC Shared Supportive Housing Pilot Program, or showcases SROs to provide a wider range of housing types. This project has recently gone under the public review process. Next slide, please. The applicable geography for small and shared housing can be seen here, where the dwelling unit factor would be eliminated throughout your district. As such, small and shared homes can be permitted anywhere and therefore is applicable in your district. Next slide, please. The weeds here. Enabling more small and shared apartments can relieve some of the pressure from family size units and can provide social support. Its creation will open up availability for family housing by creating a new market for small and shared apartments. Allowing small and shared apartments through eliminating dwelling unit factor, which is a measure of minimum average unit size in areas with good transit access. This would provide more housing opportunities for a range of New Yorkers, like those who want to live alone but do not have that option, or those who would want to live in a more communal setting. Next slide, please. So this is an example of what it could potentially look like. Zoning restrictions would be relaxed in this instance to make it possible to build shared housing. So this is a floor plan where you see the section highlighted in yellow, which would show the communal space, private rooms in light beige, that shows all the dwelling units. So essentially the idea is you're sharing common areas, but you have the privacy of your own bedroom where that's locked for security. Next slide, please. And then we're going to get into parking. Today, New York City requires most new housing to include off-street parking, regardless of how many of those parking spaces are actually used. This proposal would remove the requirement, but still provide the option for developers to include if desired. Next slide, please. Building parking itself is costly at $67,000 per underground parking spot. Additionally, it is an obstacle to housing growth. This diagram shows that one parking spot is equivalent to the size of a studio apartment. Parking will still be allowed, and we anticipate that developers will respond to market needs and continue to provide parking in areas where there is demand. Through removing parking mandates, we can help reduce the cost of housing construction and enable the development of more homes in each new building. Next slide, please. We're going to switch gears and go into low density proposals. Okay, so we're going to shake it up here and do a little quick question. So does anyone remember what R is in zoning? Amazing. Okay, so great. Love that you guys are getting a hang of it. So low residential, again, is R1 to R5, right? So we have R4 in your district, which is, again, on the northwest corner of your district, which is on St. Nicholas Avenue between Star Street and DeKalb Street. So we're going to go to the next slide, please. There are 3 proposals that are somewhat applicable to your district, again, because there's a very limited geography. It's about 4 blocks, and you will see on the low density map that you'll see the Evergreen Cemetery mapped as R3, but don't think about that right now. Let's focus on the 4 blocks on the northwest section of your district. So great. So we're going to get into transit-oriented development, accessory dwelling units, and district fixes. Next slide, please. So transit-oriented development will allow for low-rise buildings, 3 to 5 stories, depending on the underlying zoning, on sites that are near transit and meet specific criteria. First, the lot must be half a mile away near transit and meet specific criteria. Second, the lot must be over 5,000 square feet. This also includes community facilities like faith-based organizations or libraries. And finally, the lot must be located on a short end of a block or less than 230 feet from an intersection, or a wide street, which is defined as over being more than 75 feet wide. So why we're doing this is because it would promote more missing middle housing while also promoting sustainability by adding housing in areas with good transit access. Next slide, please. Switching gears over to accessory dwelling units. In the rest of the low density areas, we want to give homeowners more flexibility. Under this proposal, 1 or 2 family homes would be allowed to add a small accessory dwelling unit or an ADU. There are a range of different types, which include backyard cottages, garage conversions, and basement apartments. Successful ADU programs are also done in Austin, Seattle, and the state of Connecticut. And they each show us that these units can give multi-generational families a little more space and help middle-class homeowners with household expenses. We heard your concerns regarding aging in place and think this is an appropriate proposal to permit doing so. To ensure that these are safe, new basement ADUs will not be allowed in the coastal floodplain, and no ADUs will be allowed in special coastal risk districts, none of which are applicable to your community district. Next slide, please. Fixes. We have additional provisions to expand the envelopes of homes for homeowners in R1 to R5 districts, where we'd expand on height and bulk limitations, with modest FAR increases ranging from 0.15 to 0.40, which is less than 1 FAR, for smaller proposed minimum lot sizes. Next slide, please. And our last low density proposal that does not have applicability in your district is the town center proposal. Our town center proposal aims to re-legalize mixed-use apartments or buildings with a ground floor commercial use and a few stories of housing on top, which already exists in many low density neighborhoods citywide. Next slide, please. And then we will very quickly go over 3 miscellaneous applications that do have some limited applicability in your community district. I just want to add for the town center zoning, it will relax zoning rules and it essentially will make it feasible to build 2 to 4 stories of housing above a commercial floor. For a site to be eligible, it must be both within a low density district and commercial overlay. And miscellaneous proposals where we're going to go over the sliver law, development rights, and railroad right-of-way, which are limited in your district. Next slide, please. The sliver law was created to provide height limits for a subset of narrow lots at a time before height limits were broadly available through zoning. We're proposing to remove this. Your CB has some applicability along Beaver Street between Flushing Avenue and Melrose Street. This proposal would allow these sites to build taller above the permitted height in the sliver law. Next slide, please. Landmark Transfer of Development Rights Program was created to support landmarks preservation and legal obligations. However, it was introduced with a very limited radius, and that would restrict housing to a smaller number of sites. We're proposing to widen the radius. Next slide, please. The railroad right-of-way special permit was created to prevent inappropriate bulk when developers use floor area from large and irregularly shaped railroad lots and to prevent interference with railroad operations. It seeks to reduce obstacles with development, including housing, while maintaining oversight of development over active rail and CPC review of large sites, incorporating railroad right-of-ways. For development on any railroad right-of-way, this continued before effective date of COHO, regardless of size. Small developments less than 4 acres using floor area or former railroad right-of-way not platforming over railroad right of way, and furthermore, parking / open use on former railroad right of way will be allowed as of right. We'll also have other tools like authorizations and certifications, unlike special permits, because special permits would take too long depending on the condition and the type of railroad right of way. Okay, next slide. We're almost there. 2 more slides. Overall, this text amendment aims to create a little more housing of various types and sizes everywhere so that each neighborhood does its part to address our housing needs, and a few neighborhoods don't feel the intense pressure they do today. Next slide. You can also find more information, including recordings of previous info sessions, as well as other ways to stay informed on our website, nyc.gov/yes housing opportunity. As the text amendment was recently referred, community boards will have until the end of June to provide comments. We are here to provide you with as much information as possible for you to make an informed decision that would support your communities. Happy to take questions, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Kyra. Again, Ngaini, I am the Housing and Land Use Chair for CB4. So similar team, or Kyra and her colleagues presented this to us at the Housing and Land Use Committee meeting last month. It is an overwhelmingly large amount of information. And if you have questions, you are not alone. It is so much. It is very, very technical. We don't have a quorum today. We luckily also, because we started working through this last month, we are going to be discussing this again and taking a formal vote at the Housing and Land Use Committee so that we can bring committee recommendations to the full board for the June meeting. But I think this is a great time to sort of work through some of this stuff. So what I think I'd like to do is for everybody who has this handout, and anyone who doesn't, who wants one, we have more and we can pass them out, because this is citywide. A lot of this stuff honestly doesn't apply to Bushwick. Some of it could have huge impacts on Bushwick. And so in the interest of time and focusing on really like what matters, what we would like to do is just run through this checklist and tell you the thinking so far of the Housing and Land Use Committee. You are welcome to come next Tuesday too. This is a, open public. It matters to every single person in this community hugely. So for anyone, just I will keep talking, but if anyone wants a checklist to follow along, we have some up here, and I will maybe, would you mind passing those out? Thank you.
And if I may, just to
Yes.
provide some structure to
Yeah.
the over 18 proposals we probably will be speaking about. Universal affordability preference, that was the first proposal that was heard, the 20% increase. We're going to try to go through each of these items if there are questions on these specific items. Otherwise, we're going to be bouncing around. But if there are questions about things that don't go in that order, we will try our best to manage that. We just want to make sure we're noting each proposal separately because these are different proposals.
Exactly. 18 very complicated technical issues. So for those who are following along on the checklist, the first page, beginning at the top, City of Yes Housing Opportunity, Town Center Zoning, that doesn't really apply to Bushwick. And honestly, I think we should skip past it because it doesn't apply to us. Number 2, transit-oriented development. Would you mind holding or do you have a question for that? Or would you? Okay, so transit-oriented development is extremely limited applicability to Bushwick. Again, in the interest of time, not trying to skate over anything, we just want to keep focused. Accessory dwelling units. This is the idea of like building a little granny apartment in the backyard. There is very limited. There's probably some on Bushwick Avenue, some of those big lots that have that size. Where we are also one of our concerns is about flooding. There was mention about coastal flooding. We are not on the coast, but we, as everybody knows, have real flooding issues in certain parts of the neighborhood. So that's an issue. And then district fixes. That is also deeply limited in terms of its applicability for Bushwick. So again, in the interest of time, the first page, it doesn't apply in a really meaningful way to Bushwick.
So, and this is still a public hearing, so if there are any questions on low density proposals, now is the time. Once
Exactly.
we move past this, we will move past this into the others.
Mr. Sabai.
Felix Ceballos, CB4. I see you show very, very clear when we're talking about parking.
Forgive me, can we wait till we get to the parking item? We just want to focus one by one, just to keep it like, so everybody's on the same page, all the same. I apologize. Oh, don't mean to cut you off. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Oh,
Zach Hendrickson, board member. On the transit-oriented development, I understand you're saying it's like not really applicable. Okay, but gotcha. But I'm just curious about how that would apply to like the area around Broadway Junction as it comes into our district.
Hi everyone. My name is Juki Sai. I work in the Brooklyn office. I think most of the and I'm trying to recall the like zoning in the immediate vicinity of Broadway Junction. I think as far as like the notion of transit-oriented development as a whole, there's like proposals currently around what's going on in Broadway Junction. As far as what this is, like a low density residential, I think the board chair was correct in that for this specific sort of iteration of it in CHO, it is not as applicable, although there are kind of discussions around projects in the Broadway Junction vicinity. But I guess the point being, this is very specific to R5 and below districts.
Thanks. I appreciate the clarification.
thank you. Any other questions on low density on the page 1 of this?
Want to know, okay. Oh, my name is Deborah Cook, and I'm concerned about, my name is Deborah Cook, and I'm here to ask a question about how is this going to affect, the future proposal for 2031, and they're talking about putting 20 stories on a residential block.
So I think, I guess I can refer that to them, but I think if you don't mind, can we table that question just till the end to get through all of these? And then we can specifically talk about that. This is not going, I mean, sorry, the mic is, but I think that because it depends on which, I'm going to kick that. But if you don't mind, if we can just work through all of this and then get back to.
And if I may, just a point of clarification, the low density proposals only apply to 4 blocks on St. Nicholas Avenue. Everywhere else in Bushwick will be discussed momentarily, but the low density proposals are only 4 blocks on St. Nicholas Avenue and the cemetery, although it's not applicable in the cemetery. So if there are no other questions for those 4 blocks on St. Nicholas Avenue, then we will keep it moving so we can answer all the other questions for how these proposals will impact Bushwick.
Okay, next, flip your page over, medium and high density. This is where the rubber hits the road. So universal affordability preference. This is a big one. This is an important one. I think it can do some really good stuff for Bushwick. We also had a lot of questions about it. So,
City planning can address the question about 2031 Eastern Parkway or any
Yes.
project that would be developed in an R6 area and how that would impact this, UAP would impact the district. That would be helpful. 2031 Eastern Parkway. There was also a point of information from the board. It's currently an M district. Yeah.
District being rezoned to.
You need the mic.
So sorry, I'm unfamiliar with that specific project. What is it being rezoned to though?
It's a BSA variance application. Yeah, from manufacturing to residential.
Okay, so if it's in a manufacturing district currently and it's going through a variance to permit residential, UAP only applies to residential districts, medium and high density residential districts, meaning R6 and above.
So 2031 Eastern Parkway is a specific thing. They applied for a variance, which this board did support because of the affordability. It was, I think, a lot of very serious conversation around that. That is, they worked through a different city process, the Board of Standard and Appeal, not a rezoning. So it's tricky. It's super technical. We do not love that. We actively work against BSA variances on this board because they do not require community board approval or support in any way, shape, or form. And that's a huge problem. And we were very straightforward about that. But this particular thing won't necessarily affect that. But just to get back to page 2 of medium and high density, the universal affordability preferences is allowing 20% more housing if there is specific affordability. So the questions that the Housing and Land Use Committee raised, that we said 60% AMI is already more expensive than people in Bushwick can afford, that we would not be in support of that until the AMI, the area median income, basically, how much you make stacked up against how much everybody in the 5 boroughs in Westchester makes. So it would have to be lower, but then also some height limits, because if you look at a mid-block situation, where especially at this side of Bushwick, where I don't know, for example, Halsey, Weirfield, these kinds of streets, if you are adding 20% in the middle of a block, that is a lot more. If it's already an 8-story building on Wyckoff, on Knickerbocker, that's a different bucket of bolts. So we were very clear that while we appreciate that housing goals in that issue, it has to be a little more fine grained, because one of the things that we have heard very strongly about through the Bushwick Community Plan process and through the Housing and Land Use Committee is that these mid-block additions on a building that is 2 stories or 3 stories, this is a problem. And so this is something that we really wanted to flag. So that was number 1.
Just had, I can let you finish, but I just had a short question.
Okay, yeah, and I'll just bust through them. I know Mr. Ceballos is going to have the first question on this one, which is lift costly parking mandates. Parking is a big issue around here. There's a lot of different opinions on it. I will not pretend it's unanimous in one way or another, but this parking is a big issue, and lifting the mandates is something that a lot of people feel very strongly they're not going to support. The next one is converting non-residential buildings to housing. This is looking, as it says, make it easier for underused non-residential like churches. We feel very strongly that manufacturing should not be converted into housing through this. Like, this is something that we've really stuck up for. Over the years, we have limited M districts, and we really want to keep them M to the best of our ability. Some churches, some schools, like, we can understand it. But one of the things that we really wanted to flag in that was also, forgive me, I'm trying to look at stuff on the phone too, just the notes. But we do want to be very careful about that. So that was one thing. Small and shared housing, what that functionally means is SROs, single room occupancy buildings. There is a tough history in Bushwick of SROs before my time. So I can't speak in a definitive way about that. But there are a lot of people on this board who can and have very clear, strong feelings. SROs, I think, in housing advocates make a very clear and strong case that they can help people who don't need a full 1-bedroom apartment. They're cheaper. There is a good reason for them, but they also, again, we have a tough history of them here in Bushwick, and they were not good. So I think this is something that really needs a lot of debate and care, and where it would happen. And again, like in the middle of a block on, I'll just choose Halsey again for, it's maybe not appropriate. So I think that is something that we really want to flag. The next one is campus infill. This is the idea of, it's either right now it would be on a church campus or the NYCHA campuses here. We felt very strongly that right now it is not requiring affordability as the way it is written, and that is a massive red flag for us. We understand that churches need to get their roofs fixed. We support that, and they're gonna, use the assets that they have, which is, extra space necessarily. So we're not. But again, it requires some nuance and some care, and then also limiting some of the heights. Oh wait, sorry, that's the no, but and also community board support to come through. And so it's not just an automatic, yes, you can do that, but to actually work within the community. So again, that was a lot, and I'd like to open it up for specific questions. Oh, Mr. Ceballos, you already.
Could I just make one quick clarification? And those are a lot of great points. We really appreciate that. I think you all are putting together. The City Planning Commission will be reading the recommendation from every single community board. Your council member is here as well, who I'm sure will be reading it as the bill gets, or the text amendment gets negotiated in the city council. One really just quick, there are a lot of great points there. I just want to make a quick point of clarification around M districts. This proposal only applies to residential districts. So it is not the things that are going on in M districts. If there's an individual manufacturing to residential rezoning, that is its own thing. That would be its own ULURP process subject to public review, but this proposal is not touching them, but it's a understood point. No problem.
Felix Ceballos, CB4. I said before, you show here very clear about parking and space for human being. I'm an architect, I understand that, but what I thinking about is right now, find parking is very hard, and you doing the zoning. How you going to resolve that situation? Parking in the street, parking for the people, because it's very hard right now. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think if we're being completely forthright with the community, the top priority of this zoning proposal is creating more housing. We understand that there are trade-offs in this, and we want to be fully honest with you about what we're proposing. We want to make parking optional because we believe it will contribute to lower construction costs for housing. And again, that is the top priority of this text amendment, and we understand that there are trade-offs.
So the lineup first, Ms. Spellin, then Desmond. Sure, yeah.
And that's Spelling from the Community Board 4. I have a few questions. Question is, what is your definition of housing and housing? Because we've heard those words before and they don't apply to the poor people. We need to know what you're talking about.
Thank you for the question. And I know this is a really important and sensitive issue. What I can say is what the proposal is laying out, understanding that affordable means different things to different people. I want to be clear that in universal affordability preference, the additional units that developers would be able to add or take advantage of the additional FAR would be income restricted at an average of 60% AMI. That said, and we're forthright with that, we understand that that may not be what many folks consider affordable. The one thing I want to add to this is that as part of this proposal, income mixing is a part of the proposal, meaning that some of the units that are added in that income restricted, that allotted income restricted amount, they can be ranging from different AMIs. Some could be as high as 80, again, but some could be as low as 30, 40, or 50% AMI. Again, understanding that the need is very high, and we know that, there's an immense amount of need, but we want to be clear on what the proposal is, and we do hear the concerns that you're expressing.
Just to back up Ms. Spellin's point, the Bushwick AMI is closer to 40%. Like if the AMI just looked at our district, it's give or take 40%. 60% AMI is, it's almost like market rate for Bushwick Apartments, and that is insanity, which means it's actually contributing to the problem, not supporting the solution to the problem. And that's why we're always going to push really, really, really hard on that.
Understood.
I do want to bring up MIH option 3, which is a revision of one of the MIH options. So we definitely do hear you on the 60%. Again, for option 3 MIH, it is 40% AMI and 20% of the units. That's only if you're mapping MIH, right? So there's another process within that. But for UAP, as Jugi was talking about, the 60%, there's also average income, income averaging rather. So you can propose X percent 30 AMI, 30% AMI units, X percent, 60% AMI units, so long as the average of the total 60%. But we definitely hear you and implore you to really think about those numbers and make those recommendations based on what you feel is appropriate for your district. So if 60% is not appropriate, then let us know.
Turning it over to friend and colleague Desmond.
And I just want to put a point of clarification. Can we put a number behind the 60% AMI for Bushwick? Because I don't think that's market rate.
Well, I could come
Just-
up with
just because
it.
if they're gonna vote
Yeah,
for it, I just wanna
I'll
make sure
dig
they
it
have the
out.
right information.
I'll have it
It-
at the Tuesday
It's-
meeting.
It's
but-
in the presentation, folks. So 60% AMI, 83,330 for a family of 3.
Okay, so.
Yikes, yeah.
And then another, just again, point of clarification, I'm not with them, but Felix, you're an architect, I'm a developer. When it comes down to adding the parking, he made a pretty good, clear point. It keeps us from actually doing it. Right now, we abandoned a project because parking became 25% of the budget, which came to almost $16 million. So we weren't going to do the project, and that was going to bring in 200 affordable units, all because of parking. So when it comes down to development, if we look at the parking and that becomes a huge part of the budget, we're just going to walk away from it anyway. And I'm an affordable housing developer, so I completely agree with the fact that we have to kind of get creative around the parking requirements, because it is prohibitive to development, because not all the state tax pilot programs that we could apply for to get tax abatements, but still that all takes time and money, and it's and we may not even get it. So I'm just saying, just from the builder's perspective, it's a pretty good idea, because then we can kind of expedite putting more housing. That's
I think,
yeah,
Camacho, you guys have some, and then.
I just want to go real quick. I know it's going to go through a lotto. So if I'm going to give up my parking space in my home, at my. Yeah.
Hello, Edward Kopp, CB4. I actually like to come back to the parking requirements. I've been through a number of discussions with Green Streets and a couple of their presentations. So I am not a car owner. I hate your cars, just so you know. Okay. Noise pollution, air pollution, just visual pollution. All right. I'm from Michigan. I'm from the car state.
Mr. Club, just
All
to
right,
keep it
so
super
real
tight
quick,
and focused,
real
it's
tight.
7:37.
So can you tell us, what is the projection of people moving into New York City that will be car owners? How many car spots do we actually need going into the future? That if we improve, I'm asking the man who's presenting.
No.
Okay.
Point of
No,
order.
see, that what you're talking
Please,
about
point of order.
is a class
Gentlemen,
issue.
gentlemen,
So-
gentlemen.
So what?
One
So put
meeting.
money into
Gentlemen, one
public
meeting, please, one
transportation.
meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Folks,
Please, point of order.
we have a stack. Mr. Camacho, we have a stack. If you can follow the stack, please.
Yes.
Jessica has been waiting.
Jessica.
And then we have Zach, and then we have Joanna.
Exactly. And then I think we are going to have to ask you guys to come join us next Tuesday at the Housing and Land Use meeting to discuss this more fully. 6 p.m. district office.
Hello,
Tuesday.
everyone again. Jessica Tiburcio, board member. Hopefully I lighten the mood a bit up with this one. So back to the universal affordability preference. Just a clarification on the language. I don't understand what at least 20% more housing means. For example, I could see a landowner wanting to add 10 more additional units and only having 2 of those being permanently affordable. Would that be acceptable, or do all 10 have to be affordable? According to this.
Oh, that's a great question. So I think with this, I just want to be clear, as Kyra said, there are no changes to the underlying market permitted FAR. However, basically what is available through universal affordability preference, however much of that a developer wants to take advantage of, so long as those units are income restricted. In theory, if a developer has the allotted amount of floor area ratio to build an extra 15 units, but they only want to build 7, they're permitted to do that if that's the building that makes the most sense for that particular place. There is flexibility in it. They don't need to use all of it. They can use some of it, but any amount of that extra floor area ratio that they're using for as part of universal affordability preference, it needs to be income restricted. Does that answer the question? Thank you.
Zach is next.
And then Joanna.
And then Joanna.
Hi, it's Zach Hendrickson, board member. Question is about the campus infill. Example you've given is a really good one, a church with a big vacant, parking lot that's not being used. My question is, like, when I look around, I think of a lot of NYCHA properties, or I think about other types of canvases. The area that's actually there is communal green space, right? This is where people come together and have barbecues. This is where kids play, all these sorts of things. And that's not the same type of impact as just like building over an unused parking lot. So my question is, like, in the as it's written, is there preferential sort of treatment or any type of additional considerations given to green space, especially given the importance that, these big public, lawns and grasses and trees and things like that also are important for mitigating flood issues here in Bushwick, right? So every amount of green space that we lose is also impacting us in this other way as well. So I'm curious about what thought has gone into that when it comes to campus infill.
Thanks. That's a great question. So I think I just want to take a step back with this. A lot of the intent of tweaking the zoning on campus infill was simply to remove some of the barriers to that development, understanding that a lot of the campuses that got developed were under very old, again, tower in the park, if you're familiar with that term, zoning, which we believe is kind of outdated and doesn't reflect the kind of more contextual zoning that is mapped much more prominently across the city now. That's a great question. I don't have a perfect answer for you, I'm going to be honest, but I just wanted to be clear on that is the spirit of it. That said, if there is, especially for NYCHA you brought up, all of the NYCHA processes for disposition of NYCHA land or anything like that, they have to go through HUD. All of those processes there that do exist, and I'm not an expert in them, but they do remain. However, again, the spirit here is allowing more flexibility in just the zoning, but not the other parts of it, which we don't touch. Thank you.
I'm just going to be very brief, Joanna, and Joanna Fuentes, CB4. Every time I keep hearing about affordable housing, and I'm coming in here with an expectation and hoping for the best. A Bushwick, born and raising all my children here, and I have all my kids living with me. It's a shame. Okay, it is a shame because we can't afford it. Okay, my children went to college and we can't afford it. So we need to do something about this. And we need to come up with better programs for Bushwick. Okay, this is enough. No disrespect to you, but this is my community. And I'm definitely coming to the housing meeting.
I can respond to that really quickly. I think the concern you express is completely valid. I want to say that zoning is one small piece of the puzzle. We completely understand that there are real limitations in what we're proposing. There are many pieces of the puzzle that need to fall into place to produce truly affordable housing. Again, the priority in this is to allow more flexibility in the zoning for more housing to be built. But we do understand that there are limitations to just zoning and want to acknowledge that.
With the mic, yeah, that's all. And then I think.
Thank you. And I'm just gonna be very brief. Thank you for, saying that, but you have to understand, we've seen so many programs and so many people offering us. And then when we approve it, it automatically changes and says, well, we don't have control over it. And that affordable now doesn't become affordable. So now it's me that I make 15,000 a year, but I dedicate my life for the community. I can't afford to live in Bushwick. So we need something better than this. My children deserve better than this. And the ones that are being raised here need more. So I believe that we're being educated right now. And I believe that we're saying enough is enough, and we're learning and we're getting better at it. So please, let's get better and know our zoning. Let's educate ourselves, because shame on us if we continue to let anyone take over our community. Enough is enough. There is not enough space for individuals with disability. I dedicate my life for individuals with disability, and there is no place for them. Sorry. Thank you.
There's one on there, and there's only one here, and then that's.
And also I think stack, and then I believe someone on there, and you can wrap it up. Or actually, you
Just folks, the
Yeah.
folks that haven't spoken yet.
there we go.
Please.
Okay, so my name's Karina Dodd, new CB member. So I just want to say, the one thing about like the parking growing up in Bushwick, I've seen fistfights. I've seen windshields broken out over parking situations. It's dire. And I would say that I've driven through neighborhoods in Williamsburg and other neighborhoods with new developments, and they all have parking. So it's amazing that they are worthy of parking, but Bushwick is not. For some reason, we are being told that we have to take a bike, whereas other communities are allowed to have cars to take their children to school, whereas our children are told take a hike. So that's just one thing that I feel there should be more parking, not less, because there are people, family, and how can you encourage families and the growth and you don't have parking? So that's just one thing. And then in terms of the small and shared housing, is there going to be a cap on what those rents are going to be like? Because if you're having somebody living in like a dorm-like setting or like a prison-like setting, and they're paying the same money as somebody in a studio, paying $2,500 for a studio, and somebody's paying for a room, and you don't get your own kitchen, and you're paying $25. I just feel like it's ripe for corruption. Or
These are
like
questions we
abuse.
asked too. So thank you for raising those. And I'm very glad that somebody did want to ask some questions about the whole shared housing things
Feels
as
like a
well. We
tenement
got all
situation
parking
to
to it.
me, like if you're having like the small, like I thought we were getting away from tenements, but
Appreciate that. So we have one on
If
Zoom.
city planning
and
can
then-
respond
oh,
to
yeah.
that, and then we can resume the stack.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for that question. I want to start, which is to say that I hear, I think earlier what I said stands, and again, we want to be honest about that. That said, currently the parking requirements in zoning districts are the same in Bushwick as they are in if it's an R6 in Bushwick, it has the same parking requirements as an R6 anywhere else in the city. It's determined by the zoning district. I understand that the buildings that might get built are different. However, the zoning does require the same thing in different parts of the city. And again, this proposal is citywide to make parking optional. So a big part of this approach is that this whole thing applies to the entire city. We understand that there are, there are going to be different applications and different. The spirit of this is a citywide text amendment where the same things apply across. So we are proposing parking optional in all of Manhattan. We're proposing it to make it optional in all of Brooklyn, all of the city. And we're very clear that it is a citywide proposal. As far as the shared housing, I hear what you're saying. There are no proposed rent regulations as part of it. The general idea of it, and again, some folks may disagree with this logic. The basic idea that these smaller and shared are naturally somewhat cheaper in terms of it's a smaller amount of space. There might be shared amenity spaces, and it might be for someone getting their start after they move to the city, a cheaper option in the market. And again, it's not we know that there are going to be drawbacks to it, and there are trade-offs in this proposal, but that is the basic guiding logic of the small and shared apartments.
Thank you. We're going to go to Zoom and give folks a chance on Zoom to also comment. I believe I see one hand raised. I can't see the name. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Eric. I'm a neighborhood resident. Sorry, my video isn't working. Otherwise I'd be on video. I'm a member of Open New York, and I'm a homeowner in the neighborhood. Thank you for coming to talk about Open New York. I'm very happy about the proposals to increase affordability across the city through amending zoning laws. I would actually like to speak out in favor of lifting of parking minimums. Currently, New York City is a transit-rich city with pretty good mass transit systems compared to the rest of the country. Cities elsewhere outside of New York City with less robust transit systems have been removing parking mandates, and New York City should be leading on this, not falling behind. Specifically because climate change is a pressing issue. Transportation in generally is about 30% of our city's emissions, and parked cars are about half of that. And I don't really think it's a really wise idea to keep encouraging car ownership and development for the car ownership in New York City, especially with also in terms of the climate issue, but also in terms of congestion too, which is still really bad. So,
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else on Zoom? Going once? Anyone else on Zoom, Kim? We don't have anyone else. Last call for folks in person. I have Desmond. Anyone else? This is the last call. Desmond, Dustin, Cecilia. One moment. Desmond, Dustin. Who else was there? I see someone in the back as well. Public member. Yes. If we have more folks, we're gonna have to impose a time limit. So please try to keep your point brief, your question brief, so city planning can answer it briefly. All right, go ahead.
Hi, Amy Calado, tenant organizer. I only have one question. Is this in Spanish? Are these available in Spanish?
Share a slide deck in Spanish, and then
Not a slide deck. I mean for the worksheet. Yeah. So according to American community surveys, Bushwick has close to 50% Spanish language speakers. And so my question for you all is, what have you done to include monolingual Spanish speakers in this process? Just pointing out that this meeting is always carried in English. And so if the expectation is for people who speak Spanish to come here, I'm just wondering, like, what other options and opportunities are people who don't speak English to participate in this?
Thank you for that question. That's a really valid point. I'll say we can try to share the information that we have in Spanish, and we do have a translated deck, and there's a translate function on our website. That said, there might be shortcomings, but if there are specific questions that we can answer, please let us know. And again, I know there are limitations.
Hi, Joy Kim from Central Division at Department of City Planning. I'll also add that when the City Planning Commission has their public hearing on this proposal, that there will be translators available for all the main languages in New York City. So there will also be opportunity for translation of all the testimony that's being given to folks who speak Spanish, and also opportunity for folks to test translated.
With the
are not even in that process. End up doing is participating after the fact. They'll be listening in versus having a participatory voice in all this. I don't think that that is a proper representation of New York and specifically of Bushwick. So if this is just me asking about Bushwick, if this is happening across the city, then this worksheet is a waste of time because it does not represent New York as it is.
I'm just really surprised, and I can't believe this process has gotten so far ahead without including multiple languages, Mandarin, Spanish, French. This honestly is super irresponsible, and I don't think it represents New York at all.
I want to just briefly touch on a few points. So Amy, I want to say thank you for flagging this because it is very important. And I want to be very upfront about this process. The board has 2 meetings. April 30th was the first time the committee heard about this as a committee. There were other opportunities to discuss how the committee might hear about everything to prepare for this meeting on May 15th. There's not a lot of time in between then where we are getting this information in general, and that has been already flagged and identified for city planning multiple times throughout the text amendment review process, and the council members are aware. To speak about language access, it is something that's been identified before. I want to be very clear. Anything that this community needs in terms of language access, we will accommodate that. If there's any community group that would like for materials, whether it's from this meeting, and I'm not saying at this meeting, I'm saying even before this meeting, if you know there's something on the agenda and there's interest from this community in participating and they are unable to because of language access, we will find a way to accommodate, even if we have to work with the community to provide that language access ourselves. It is a number one issue identified by many boards across the city for interpretation services for these meetings. The Civic Engagement Commission has been in conversation with some of the community boards, but the support is not quite there. We are hopeful for bringing this to the Council on Governmental Operations for them to also push this to be supportive. It is a funding issue. It is a collaboration issue. There are some agencies that are amenable to providing language access and support for interpretation services for this meeting. But I want to be clear. We're here now. We can't do anything about it now, but we hope that city planning will be working with us moving forward if we do have those types of requests. And we want to make sure that everyone is able to participate.
We have 2 more. We have Desmond and then Desmond.
Dustin Sonneborn, CB4. I just want to say on its face, to me, all of these proposals look like a huge boon for developers. I can't see anything in here that seems like it's better for residents than developers. I'm wondering why we're missing things like special assessments for vacant land. This seems like something that's really great. Like Desmond said, if there's places that have not been developed because of parking restrictions, now you're cutting the cost for them by 25%, adding all this thing. It looks like it was a bunch of developers in a room getting together saying, how can we build more housing and make more money at the same time? Nothing about making anything more affordable, nothing about helping residents. Onto that, or if that's a comment. I think we're very clear on what universal affordability preference is. It's not, a perfect thing. We understand that, and we understand there are things that are left to be desired. The market rate FAR that we're proposing here is not changing. Any additional building permitted under universal affordability preference, if I'm zooming in on that particularly, is income restricted. Again, there are things left to be desired on the affordability level. I think to respond to what you just said, that is, the truth of what we're proposing, and we're presenting it is. And again, it is for the board to opine on, and we will read your recommendation, and your council members here to take that feedback.
So I wanted to touch on a few points. And again, I think though, why we're all here and we have different professions, that we can speak from different perspectives. And I think that's one thing that when Jamie was still on the board as like one of the largest developers in Brooklyn, he really spoke to like these issues in a way that kind of broke them down. And I'm going to try to do the same. So as far as the parking, I understand the issues and the frustration. However, and when we compare to other communities, not all buildings are modeled the same, and not all developers are able to take advantage of the pilot programs and the tax incentives that they get to build the parking. So yes, in other communities, you may see them with more parking, but how they're modeled, meaning how many more affordable units, and they have the market rate units, and there's a whole bunch of things that go into this performa to determine whether or not that parking can actually happen. So that's really not on the city's like level, and especially on you guys. Like that's that out of your hands. That's going to go more towards your HPDs and the developer when we're going back and forth and what those requirements are going to be, because there's a negotiation that happens at that table as well before we even get anything. I got it. And as far as the housing part, again, not here. It's not really on this, and I understand you're passionate about it, and it was exactly where you were and how you felt is the reason why I started my business. And because I was here and I was just getting pissed off at like a lot of housing, and like people aren't just, I was kind of asking for housing. And one day I was like you, and I was like, if and I heard someone just as passionate as you, and they stood up and talked about housing, and I just said, if we don't learn how to do it ourselves, then we're just not going to get it. Stop asking people for stuff. They're just not going to get it for you, right? So then you just got to do it yourself. And from that seat, I was sitting at that table constantly, right where Dustin is. I just launched a mentor group, and now we're doing projects all over, not only New York, but we're doing it in Indiana. So it's at a community level that we need to start building back. And I want you to be empowered to do that. Just like everyone here, you're all developers. If you want to, there's another one, Joshua Brown. He was here. He's now doing a few develops in a community. He's a community kid as well. So don't feel that this is the answer to your housing problem, because sometimes the answer to your housing problem is staring you right in the mirror. That's what I'm saying.
If I could just say one quick addition, vacant lots point. If there's a vacant lot that, let's say, the Department of Housing Preservation and Development is develop on, and it's 100% affordable, UAP overnight would allow that additional maybe 20 or more percent of units to be built with 100% affordable. So again, 100% affordable buildings overnight would be allowed to access that UAP FAR. So if we're talking about city developing on vacant land, again, it'd be a very quick allowance of more affordable housing.
I just want to, Robert Camacho, chairperson. I've been in Bushwick all my life. I have a comment and that I want to make is that I want everybody to know that, yes, cars do pay insurance. Cars do have to get a license. Cars do buy gas with the taxes from the gas. You know what happens with that money, right, Councilwoman? So we know where that tax gas goes. So if we don't have cars and you get rid of X amount, you're gonna know what's gonna happen later on when the gas goes up. We know why, because not a lot of people using cars, all right? So let's bring that to the point. Two, another thing, like I said, we got mechanics. What's gonna happen? You see all the jobs that the car put out there? You didn't see all the jobs, right? Get ready. Get ready, cars. All right? So you take away the parking, you're going to find out what happened. You can have everything you want. You think you see people fighting now? Oh, watch what's going to happen when the old people from Bushwick come back to the hood. I'm going to give you what's going to happen. Now, another thing, we hope that council and the people that represents us. Bushwick. I don't care about East New York. I don't care about Williamsburg. I want to see the proposal that we want, because we taxpayers and we live here. So it's up to us to make sure that they represent us, because they work for us. We don't work for them. That's all I want to let y'all guys know. So be careful what you wish for. And keep voting for the same people, because you're going to get the same results. Okay? And then you wonder what happened. Are there going to be, I calculated, out of the 15 years, our fearless mayor is telling us there's going to break X amount of housing. It's going to be 776 houses. That's all there is. You do the calculation and five boroughs. Compared to what he was saying. It's only 776. We can get more than that on right now that we have that can be affordable housing. You talking about parking? We got a parking spot that we've been fighting for to put affordable housing. Am I right? All right, so we know where the housing is. We don't need you to do a plan. We did our plan. We want to make sure that the lots, the open space that we got to do, and yeah, the grass. You know, you see grass, we need grass for our kids to come out, also for the dogs. So don't forget about the dogs. You're laughing, I'm serious. Oh, that's right, especially the dogs. So be careful. Thank you.
Councilman. Wrap.
Since the chair talked about representation, I want to respond a little bit because I'm not really sure exactly what was being said around gas tax and cars. However, I'm just being honest, I didn't understand it. But every single recommendation in the City of Yes proposals have been taken up, specifically with economic opportunity. We have fought back. We are currently fighting back, and things have been incorporated. I know you all met with land use. I represent not only Bushwick, but 4 other neighborhoods. So while you might not care what other neighborhoods think, I have to blend all the concerns. And I think that's really important, that our communities are working together and not really pitting these needs against each other, because particularly Bushwick and East New York and Cypress Hills have a lot more in common than we don't. So I just want to be clear on that. So I really appreciate that Housing and Land Use Committee has taken the time and really prepared and pared this down in a somewhat digestible somewhat attempt to be a digestible way, because that's the time and effort is going to be required to make this kind of once in a, like, I don't know if I want to call it once in a generation, but this is a massive change. The entire City of Yes package of proposals are a massive change, and to undo anything once it happens is going to be a monumental battle. So it's important to get it right. It's important to take the time and show up to the Tuesday meeting and give the recommendations. I take those recommendations seriously, the same way I have for the last 2 City of Yes proposals, and we have brought them to the council, and Council Land Use has really worked to put that in, and DCP knows we've been on their ass every single step of the way.
That's
for sure. They can tell you. So there should be no question about whether or not we are representing the needs and the recommendations that are coming out of here. It is happening. And if there's any further clarification about cars or gas tax, let me know.
Thank you. Oops. Thank you, council member. Actually have one more page, but guess what we're not going to do? That page. Most of it does not apply to Bushwick. There is one item transferring landmark air rights, sort of technical. We'll be discussing it on Tuesday. I and Celeste and Camacho, we all welcome people who would like to share thoughts and discuss this. It's a strict 2-hour limit because the poor guy who, you know, runs the building needs to go home at 8 on the nose. But other than that, it should be a robust conversation. We will then be prepared to come back to this body next month with HLU recommendations that are clear cut and modifications, things we like, things we hate, etc. So in the interest of time, I really thank everybody here for all the sort of care and attention and belief in the fact that we can make this better if we put our heads together. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. And just a point of information about next week's meeting, this will not be the only item. There is a completely separate rezoning proposal on that agenda. It is pre-certification, so it will be an informational meeting. However, those presentations are known to go for at least an hour. So more realistically, there will be at least 20 minutes that we will be having a debrief and discussion about all of these proposals. It does not sound like a lot of time. It is not a lot of time, so please come prepared. Please read the materials. If you have questions in advance, I'm happy to answer them, have the committee answer them, send them to city planning, send them to the council member's office. But we really want to have as much productive discussion as we can.
To second what Celeste is saying, if people have questions beforehand and they want to flag them, I like my contact information is on the CB4 contact list or run it through Celeste, she could bounce it to me. If I can't answer, city planning will, that kind of thing. But if we can, the better prepared we are, the smarter we can be about this.
All right, I'll make it brief. One of the things that I think might be helpful is when we first started talking about, when we first started talking about the city of yes, we thought that it was recommended that we compare it with the Bushwick plan. It might be helpful to all of us to pick out those items that are consistent with the Bushwick plan, which will make it easier for us who are not familiar with all of the technical terms to make recommendations and the process of elimination.
Thank you. That's was an excellent suggestion, and we can do that. Thank you.
All right, folks, that concludes our public hearing this evening. It is 8:11. At this time, we're going to invite folks that are here, board members first, to please help themselves to some dinner. And we're going to start with our first roll call. Please be as quiet as possible so you can hear when I call your name. If you have not signed in, you will be marked absent. If you do not respond and you have not signed in, you will be marked absent. Please sign in. Isa Abney. Stephanie Anderson. Here. Jacqueline Becerra. Melissa Bellardo. Joanna Bennett. Makiba Brown-Elaine is excused. Robert Camacho. Melissa Carrera Solano is excused. Felix Ceballos. Christian Tate. Andrew Choi is excused. Alvina Davis is excused. Karina Dodd. Please sign in. Cecilia Fabian. Freddie Fowler. Joanna Fuentes. Jason Gares. Thank you, Joanna. Christopher Graham. Ann Guiney. Zachary Hendrickson. Deborah Hicks. Tanisha Honeygan. Present. Barbara Jackson is absent. She informed the district office. Kaisha Johnson. Virgie Jones. Tara Jones Thomas. Go ahead. Luisa Hostos, Nicholas Kaplan. Edward Kopp. Christine Meldon. Freddie Madison. Mary McClellan. Desmond Monroe. Alex Moreno.
Present.
Ramika Nichols Barnes. Zuma Novoa. Present. Carlos Ortiz. Caitlin Penner. Raul Rubio. Eliseo Ruiz. Milagro Sandoval. Bernardina Shell is excused. Barbara Smith. Present. Dustin Somborn. Annette Spellin. James Stewart. Jessica Tiburcio. Ben Tucker. Jerry Valentine.
Present.
Linda Whitfield. No. Oh yeah, I got her. I got her.
Got me, Celeste?
Twenty-seven board members present. That constitutes a quorum. Again, if you have not signed in, you will be marked as absent. Please sign in. And yes, Barbara, I got you on Zoom.
Did you get me, Stephanie Anderson?
You got you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
It's not going to be realistically, and I don't think it's controversial enough to need a presentation. It's just like, it makes sense. All right, folks. We will move on with the agenda. Acceptance of the agenda. Folks, please be quiet.
Hello. Listen up. Point of order. Hello. You gotta listen up.
Annette Spellin made a motion to accept the agenda. Is there a second? Ann Guiney seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Agenda item number 3, acceptance of the previous meeting minutes. Andrew Choi, who currently assists the office with the minutes, has asked for them to be tabled. He's still working on them. Is there a motion to table the minutes, folks? Annette Spellin made a motion to table. Is there a second?
Is there a second?
Freddie Fowler seconds. All in favor? All in
All in
favor?
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Agenda item number 4, Mr. Camacho's report.
Listen, if y'all don't listen to my report, I'm gonna do something, throw you out my room. I'm only kidding. You like that, right? I'm gonna hurry up as quick as I can. On Thursday, April 18th, I went to CNC IS 291. On Monday, the 22nd, CB4 Youth and Education Committee. On Tuesday, the 23rd, at 3:30, A3 precinct with the baseball leagues. As you know, in Bushwick Field, as you know, we've been having issues, so this board hasn't give any recommendations on the times and hours to Bushwick Park because there were issues. So hopefully we're doing a walkthrough soon. We're trying to get our parks to come on out because I know the person live in the building adjacent. They're tearing the fence off, so they're trying to see if they could get money to fix this fence that they broke and they trespassing into his property. So today we should be voting on the permit because they didn't get any. So we should be voting on Quebradilla and Super Kid, and it's not controversial. They worked it out among each other. Also on the 24th, Wednesday, CB4 District Office Committee. That same day at 10:30, we met with DOT Commissioner at 127 Pennsylvania Avenue. That Thursday, April 25th at 11, City of Planning, we met with them too that day. Thursday, the 25th at 3 o'clock, Shape Up Bushwick event. That same day, 12 to 2 p.m., 1755 Broadway with Councilwoman Sandy Nurse. She has a group there they're working in Bushwick with Stop Violence Youth. So there's a program right there on Broadway. The guys are very good. So anyone who wants to stop by, enjoy them or help them out. At 4 p.m. that same day, I went to Round Table, Barbara Jackson, 1175 Gates, dressed to impress. It was really nice. I was a rapper that day, so, don't be mad at me. There's a video out there of me, but I told Barbara Jackson not to record me. On Saturday, the 27th, I did a cleanup event in Puente over there on Grove Street. Thank you, A3 Precinct, NCO officers, Ujima, some of the tenants, and El Puente. Thank you. We cleaned that place up. I hope the tree is growing, got to maintain it, all right? A picture of it. I also put some topsoil on there for you guys. On Sunday, let me tell you something, guys. On Sunday, it was 70 years anniversary of the Cooper Church that's there. Mr. Perryman, everybody knows. I went to church. Boy, could they party. Jesus, man. He was great. They tell us stories you couldn't believe. Celeste was there with me. Celeste was there. We were there from 3 o'clock all the way close to 7:30, right? I got a lot of prayers for everything that I did bad ever since I was a kid. I got a lot of prayers. They took care of me. So thank you, Mr. Perryman, and bless him. 15 years as the pastor and 70 years that church been on Cooper, 215 Cooper. Tuesday the 30th from 3 to 5, 311 Central, Puente. That they have service there, official service with the people's money. So please, wherever 17, is it? What's the age? For the people, 11 and up, vote for the people's money. All you gotta do is fill it out. There are a couple of special needs programs, 200,000, path to positive money habits, 200,000, ACL for all, 200,000, rise to the top exchange. So vote for whatever you guys want on here. Bring the ballot back because it's only up to June, almost the end of June. So please vote. On Wednesday, the 5th of May, May 1st, CB4 Executive Committee. Thursday the 2nd, CB4 House and Land Use. I was on Zoom. I was on vacation, but I was on Zoom. That's right. It was my wife's birthday, and also it was my birthday. 63. You believe that? So thank God I made it. I told my dad I made it. My dad told me I wouldn't pass 14. I think I beat all odds. Wednesday, May 8th, District Service Cabinet meeting. Thursday the 9th, meeting CB4 with both, a meeting about HPD and zone. And today the full board meeting. And that is it. Any questions? None? Thank you. God bless.
All right. Moving on now, introduction of elected officials and representatives. If you are here in person, please come up to the front. Please make a line. We will pass you the mic. If you are on Zoom, please raise your hand. We will start in person. Name and contact info. Also, members of the public, you can quietly help yourself to some dinner as well, if you would like. Everyone can help themselves now to dinner.
Hi, Pablo Rivera. I represent Assemblyman Eric Dilan. We are 366 Cornelia. My phone number is 347-388-8271. Any information or questions or events that you might have, need help, give me a call.
Hi, my name is Lacey Tauber, Borough President Antonio Reynosa's office. My phone number is 718-802-3894.
Joe Tonelli, Irving Square Park. Phone number is 845-242-0456 or irvingsquarepark@gmail.com.
Thanks, Joe. You jumped the gun. This is just for elected officials and reps, but it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Yep. It's all good. We're gonna get to you next. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Maria Valdez from the Office of Senator Julia Salazar, phone number 718-573-1726. Thank you.
Everyone. Good evening, everyone. Jonathan Bancourt here on behalf of Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez. Our phone number is 718-599-3658. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Lacey.
All right. Yeah, they went already. You can bring the mic back. And then on Zoom, we have Juan. Go ahead, Juan.
Hey everyone, Juan Mayoncela here from Councilmember Jennifer Gutierrez's office. Phone number is 718-963-3141, and the office is located at 244 Union Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, if there are any agency representatives or community-based representatives, organizations or groups, now's the time. Agencies, community-based organizations, community groups, please come to the middle. We'll pass you the mic. And if you're on Zoom, raise your hand and we will call on you. Name and contact info only.
Amy Collado with BHIP, 929-324-7358.
Asenet Gomez El Puente, 718-452-0404.
Presente.
All right. I see one hand on Zoom. Juanita James, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Juanita James. I'm with the Brooklyn Public Library, Washington Irving. I'm sorry I could not be there today, so I just wanted to give you a quick update on what the Brooklyn Public Library is doing.
Juanita, just name and contact info right now. Announcements are later. Thank you, though.
Okay, so our telephone number is 718-230-2100.
Thank you. All right, we will move on. We already heard from our command. I'm sorry, there's someone else? Oh, go ahead, Denise. Sorry, I missed you. Go ahead.
This is Denise Watkins. I work for Flushing Family Resident, SEO Flushing Family Resident, and my telephone number is 347-785-5909. I'm the child care coordinator there.
Thank you for joining us, Denise. All right,
You're
folks.
welcome.
One meeting. We're going to move on. The precinct already reported earlier, so we're going to go into the district manager's report. That is my report. So good evening, everyone. And happy Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, Older Americans Month, and belated Happy Mother's Day. I hope you've been able to enjoy some of the related activities and annual traditions. This time of year is one of the busiest in the board's district. Applicants continue to contact the board for assistance with street events and block parties. We're preparing for the end of the fiscal year on June 30th, which includes one final spend down for any board needs and other purchases. And the borough budget consultation process is starting again as a new borough coordinator works with fellow district managers to assign moderators and prepare agencies to prepare agendas for each agency consultation. Over the past several years, some of you may recall, the community board has expanded the community engagement opportunities through the board's community district needs process, which is the first part of the city's budget process. We hear a lot about participatory budgeting. Folks don't realize the community boards were the original participatory budgeting. And so I also want to welcome, we have new board members. I'm going to call them out by name. If you are here in person, please stand. If you are participating via Zoom, please raise your hand so you can be acknowledged. Starting with Jason Gares, Alex Moreno, Karina Dodd, Linda Whitfield, Jacqueline Becerra, Carlos Ortiz, Melissa Bellardo, Deborah Hicks, Freddie Madison, Ramika Nichols Barnes. And just a reminder, folks, all board members are required to participate in person at all board meetings unless you have a remote waiver. If you are curious as if you're eligible and you've yet to contact me about a remote waiver, please contact me in the board's office and I'm happy to provide you with more information.
And I'm really very, very tight on attendance. So obviously, if you're not here today, you are marked absent, and 3 absences is a letter. Will go to the principal. And it's not me, it's the charter and the borough president that mandates that. Thank you.
All right. And now I will try to summarize some of the meetings and events that I've attended. As usual, I attend a lot of the same meetings as Mr. Camacho and some of our board leadership. On Thursday, April 18th, I was on a call with a reporter from New York Magazine. We were talking about Green Central Knoll Field and all of the pet owners that continue to use the field as a dog run, despite the fact that it is a sports field that is intended for youth sports. There have been issues at that field. The board continues to talk about options. Those folks are interested in siting a dog run somewhere within the neighborhood. We've been told as of right now that it's not feasible, at least to put it in the field itself, because it is a sports field. It is not a dog run. And there have been hostile situations between park staff and folks. They continue to cut the locks on the fence every day. They cut the fence to gain access. It is not a sustainable situation. And we look forward to working with the council member's office who's been proactive, the commissioner from the Parks Department, and everyone else to address these issues. Let's see. We continue to have conversations ongoing with Riseboro Property Management. There are meetings every month to talk about their buildings and tenant issues. We appreciate them taking the time to fill us in, and it demonstrates that when we work together, we can attempt to address these things a lot more efficiently and to have transparency. The board's office also has had an intern for the past few months. The ceremony was yesterday. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend because I was preparing for this meeting. But folks may recall Jared Hicks, former board member, also the son of Deborah Hicks. So runs in the family, the service to the community, has been our intern for the past few months, has been working on projects such as district needs analysis, expanding on the outreach materials that we've been working on, and really trying to further engage and uplift Bushwick district need priorities. So we thank Jared and wish him the best moving forward with his program. And let's see. On Wednesday, April 24th, I had a call with Cesar Ventura, Natalie Garcia, and Aldrin Bonilla from the Fund for the City of New York. I want to say thank you to CB4 for everyone that responded to the term limit planet survey. There were over 126 responses from all 5 boroughs. I'm also happy to report that Staten Island 3, however, was #1 in terms of responses by board. Almost half their board contributed. Brooklyn, however, was the borough with the most responses. And again, this is for the term limit panel project that the community boards are working on citywide. The panel will be on Monday, June 24th from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Fund for the City of New York. It is open. It's an open event. Board members are encouraged to participate. We are in the process of confirming the panelists, and more information will be made available soon. So working with the Fund for the City of New York on this, as well as the Center for Urban Pedagogy, who's been helping thus far and analyzing the survey feedback responses. And let's see. I've also checked in with Dina Alfano from the Bushwick Historic Preservation Association. There was a sheet that I passed on to Mr. Camacho with some other items that have been going on in Bushwick. Perhaps we'll cover those under announcements. But folks may have seen in the news that there is another one family home on Bushwick Avenue. Another one bites the dust. It will now be redeveloped into a multi-family building. It was sold. There was a little bit more information that the Preservation Association was able to obtain as one of the members knows what happened. But folks, it's so important when you own a property, make sure your affairs are in order. Make sure your will is clear. This is one of those situations where a family member was supposed to inherit the property, and it did not go the way that folks had originally planned. We do not have all the information. But we will now see changes coming to Bushwick Avenue and continue this pattern now that the area is not protected. We have R6 zoning, and we may continue to see this pattern of redevelopment. Let's see. In addition to the conversation we had earlier, I just want to emphasize that in the committee meetings, we have our primary discussion as instructed by the leadership. I also reached out to Chris Walters from ANHD to ask for more information on their take on City of Yes zoning for housing opportunity. So I was able to get some insight, and they offered, if there are any questions that they could answer, they're happy to help out. We've also engaged City Council Land Use, so thank you to our council members and to the staff from Council Land Use for giving us the comparative analysis that we requested with the Bushwick Community Plan. That will also be reviewed by the committee. And we hosted a district service cabinet as we do every month. We thank all the agencies for their meaningful participation. And we also attended, you're going to hear more from our Housing and Land Use Chair on this, but the debrief with Councilmember Nurse and the team from Councilmember Gutierrez's office, our debrief from the meeting with HPD Commissioner Carrion. So we'll be hearing a little bit more on next steps in that process. And let's see. And I will stop there and just note that a good chunk of this report also includes a variety of things that happen within the office, from making sure we have Zoom this evening. We were very close to not having Zoom this evening. To also making sure that the technology within the office is working. It is a very small team that we have. I'm thankful for the help from Kim, from Adelina, and from all of the board members who continue to assist with meeting reports, participating in meetings. It really does make it a lot easier for us to get all of this work done and to manage this labor that we're doing on behalf of the community. Thank you, everyone. That concludes my report. All right, committee report. If I can encourage you all, please summarize bullet points and encourage your fellow board members to read the reports. We mic now to our Civic Public Safety Religious Committee Chairperson, Annette Spellin.
Good evening. I attended several meetings. You can read my report on those, but the most important things that I want to bring up tonight are we had 2 fires in Bushwick, one at 17 Latin Street on April 21st, a 4-story occupied mixed dwelling. There were no injuries there. However, the other one on May 1st at 1385 Bushwick Avenue at the supermarket that was there was 1 civilian injury, and the buildings adjoining were left vacant, leaving 33 adults and 16 children to have to relocate. The committee met and voted on 2 street co-namings. The first one is for Monsignor John Paulus. He was a pastor for 20 years at Bushwick St. Barbara's Church. And the second one was for Osman Long, better known as Osh to those here in the community. And for some of you who haven't noticed, Osh was a member, he was one of 13 children, and most of them are here tonight, along with his wife and kids. The committee voted to approve both of these co-namings. If you have any questions, you can ask me, but I'm going to try and keep this short and pass it on and ask that the complete board vote in favor of both of these co-namings.
All right, we're gonna have to have you back in the future. Love the energy from this corner. All right, so next we're gonna move on to District Office Committee. Mr. Camacho, do you want to summarize the District Office report?
Uh,
So Mr. Camacho is asking me to summarize. So the District Office Committee, it really has one responsibility, which is reviewing the board member attendance. They're also aware of any activity that's happening in the district office. So this is going to be folks that were flagged for absences. When you are flagged for an absence, it does not mean you're being removed from the board. I just want to be very clear. Some folks have also expressed concern about having their name shared when they're flagged for an absence. We have to do this. It is a part of transparency. If we do not disclose this, the board won't be informed. When you are at risk of being removed, you will receive a letter. You will have an opportunity for your attendance to improve. This right now just means that you were flagged. You're being flagged to have your attendance improve. If it does not improve, you will receive the letter, and then you'll have a chance to respond to indicate your membership intentions as per the board bylaws based on the city charter. So flagged for absences, I'm going to go through the list of board members. Stephanie Anderson, Joshua Brown did not renew, so it's not relevant. Raul Brown also did not review, so not relevant. Melissa Carrera Solano, Felix Ceballos, Andrew Choi, Tara Jones Thomas, Nicholas Kaplan, Christine Malden, Raman Mama was not reappointed, does not apply. Mary McClellan, Desmond Monroe, Milagros Sandoval, Maria Soler did not renew, does not apply. Tashana Wade did not renew, does not apply. And then a warning. So the difference between flagged for absences means 3 or more. Excused or unexcused. Flagged means either 2, not yet 3. Isa Abney, Makiba Brown Elaine, Elvina Davis, Cecilia Fabian, Joanna Fuentes, Virgie Jones, Caitlin Penner, Raul Rubio, Bernardina Shell, Barbara Smith, Reverend James Stewart, Jerry Valentin was removed from this list as one of his absences was an oversight due to his lateness and sound issues during the January District Office Committee meeting. And just to summarize the discussion, Eliseo Ruiz asked about Ms. McClellan. I let him know that I spoke with her earlier in the year. She's in a rehab facility outside of Bushwick. He suggested that the board get the address and coordinate a time to go see her and celebrate the work that she's done for the board. I will be following up to see if we can do that. And there was also questions about how we review the attendance and what happens when attendance is not improved. So for the current meeting year, the committee met in October, January, and April. The next meeting is tentatively scheduled for October. Given the summer recess, board members flagged for absences would have an opportunity to improve their attendance by then. So you have from now to October to improve your attendance. And during the district office report in that meeting, I talked about the budget spend down, which I referenced. I talked about the ceiling. When there is heavy rain, there are leaks. However, the property management usually swift to address those. We also have issues with our boilers very often, although again, the property management is responsive. Elected officials and board members may have received an email. The BK04 email, our general agency email, was inoperational for 4 business days. That means anything that anyone's email address was not received. We immediately followed up. I want to thank Kim for reaching out to the citywide service desk. We got the email restored, and we are still in the process of figuring out what happened, as we were simply told by the representatives that contact us that someone had switched it to no longer being active, which is not really a justifiable reason for an entire agency's email to no longer be available. And we are not the only board in Brooklyn that was affected. I did reach out to my colleagues and learned that other boards had the same issue. I look forward to providing additional information. At the meeting, I reported there were no mice or pests. However, since then, there has been one mouse. So we are back at it again to address the pest issues within the office. And relinquishment. Over the summer, we're going to get rid of any unused equipment, and we will continue to update the board regularly. And everything else is equipment-based. And that concludes this report. All right. Thank you, everyone. We will move on now to economic development plus housing and land use. If I can make a suggestion, skip past City of Yes and just go into everything else.
Hi, everybody. I think as Celeste suggested, we've already talked a lot about City of Yes. Again, we will be able to devote a small portion of the meeting next Tuesday, 6 p.m. at the district office to coming together on that. Really, the only other thing we're, again, flagging this demolition which on Bushwick Avenue, which highlights longstanding issues about the zoning there, which because all those sites are so big on Bushwick Avenue, they're ripe for being bought out and knocked down. And yeah, part of Bushwick history has gone with it. And then finally, we had a meeting on the 9th with Councilmember Nurse and Councilmember Gutierrez's staff, and to follow up about really keeping HPD's Housing Preservation and Development Agency's feet to the fire about affordability, about accessing vacant lots for 100% affordable development in this community. At Councilmember Nurse's suggestion, it's going to be a not monthly, but regular sort of standing meeting so that we have open lines of communication. And that is all. And we welcome you on Tuesday.
All right. Next, we have permits and licenses. Christine.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be reading the Permits and Licenses Committee Chairperson's report. I'm Christine Malden, CB4 member. She is absent this evening. So in terms of new liquor license applications, we were pretty light this month. We had one KOQ Holdings doing business as Little Mo at 1158 Myrtle Avenue between Broadway and Ditmers. It's a restaurant. They are taking over a pre-existing restaurant as of December. They have 20 years of experience collectively. They will be renting out their restaurant for catering style events. CB4 chairperson reminded them that the application of the owner of the liquor license should always be present even for catered events. They do not have any outdoor spaces, and their intended sale of alcohol hours were pretty reasonable at Monday through Saturday from 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. and Sunday from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. The second applicant was a class change. It is Rico Chimmy Myrtle Ave Corporation at 1492 Myrtle Avenue. For a change of class, so going from wine, beer, and cider to additional liquor license. This is also a restaurant, and they have also come before the community board committee. Previously, the committee voted not in favor in September 2023, considering this establishment's long record of noise complaints, including but not limited to our own Mr. Edward Kopp lives in the neighborhood and can attest to this. In addition, they have been seen with hookah material without a permit as well, DJ and dancing, etc. So they came before us to ask that we reconsider. Their current sale of alcohol hours do not fall into our current stipulated hours, which are a little bit abbreviated, but when it's just a class change, we're not in a position to make any recommended changes to that. So their current sale of alcohol hours are Monday through Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m., Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 4 a.m., and Sunday from 11 a.m. to 12 a.m. They also have an outdoor space that is open from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. on all days. Okay, moving right along. I think we spent the vast majority of our time in last month's meeting speaking with Ray Carrero, who is the Director of Quality of Life at the Mayor's Community Affairs Unit. He was providing an update on the neighborhood support team project around the Jefferson L subway station. So just for a brief history, in 2016, Mayor de Blasio signed local law 102 into law, requiring a designated agency to address quality of life issues. This program went through some changes and eventually landed at the Community Affairs Unit. And last year they launched neighborhood support teams. One of the projects that was submitted was one that was for CB4, which is to address the nightlife concerns around the Jefferson L stop, and in particular, what happens when patrons leave the establishments. In the past, they used to do multi-agency enforcement operations called March, which has since been phased out by this administration in favor of a new project called Cure, which really emphasizes trying to rehabilitate the relationship with the establishment to see if they could get them in a good faith way to reduce their negative impacts on the community. And in our CB4 district, Moonrise, which is located on Willoughby Avenue between Wyckoff and St. Nicholas, was identified as an establishment that was having a negative impact on the community and might benefit from such an intervention. So they will be working on that in conjunction with the Office of Nightlife Task Force. And Mr. Carrero asked the community board committee to just give him some more a better understanding of the negative impacts that Moonrise is having. We indicated that we had already previously written a letter, but we did go over some of these negative impacts together during the meeting. And we agreed, I live in that neighborhood, so among others, I think we'll be monitoring the situation. In addition, he had mentioned that there were a number of food trucks, and we also discussed some cannabis trucks around that same area on Wyckoff Avenue. And I think the captain spoke earlier about an enforcement action that happened last week to try to shut down those trucks that had been operating for illegally, or at least in a case hadn't been moved in some time, which disturbs alternate side of the street parking and contributes to the rodent infestation in the area. Finally, our community liaison reminded us that 311 complaints are not really the best option for making complaints about nightlife establishments, and that we should be using the SLA complaint portal. And then now moving on, we had no committee mail, and moving into old business and recommendations. The chairperson, the permits and licenses chairperson, informed us that the committee had to make recommendations about OCM and SLA, so cannabis and liquor applicants who did not, following our meetings, submit additional documentation or who did not attend committee meetings. This must be done as the establishment owners might attempt to bypass the community board going straight to SLA or OCM. And so in that respect, the committee voted not in favor of a motion to vote not in favor for the SLA and OCM establishments that did not either attend the committee meeting or submit additional information. The next thing on the docket was that the permits and licensing chairperson informed the committee that the stipulated hours for OCM applicants needed to be voted. We did vote in favor of the stipulated hours of Sunday through Thursday until 10 p.m. and Friday through Saturday until 12 a.m. And then finally, in terms of the SLA applicants that we mentioned earlier, the committee did vote in favor to support Little Mo, the first applicant, the restaurant, the new wine, beer, and cider license. They were supposed to submit some additional information, including entertainment and DJ, but I don't think they did before this meeting today. And then secondly, the other establishment, Rico Chimi, the committee voted to not in favor, not to support in favor, not to support in favor, to vote not in favor of the class change because of the continued problems with that establishment. I think that is pretty much it. Let me just see if there's anything else here. That is it. And I think the only other thing we discussed was the potential to include a sort of a good neighbor policy in our stipulations moving forward. That would just sort of, as people are applying for applications for licenses, that there would be sort of a clause that said they would try to work out any problems with us, should any arise. And that is it.
Thanks, Christine. We'll move on now to Shape Up Bushwick Planning. Reverend Stewart.
Make it look easy. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'll keep it brief. I want to encourage you to read the report. We last met at the end of April, and our final planning meeting is on Thursday, May 30th at 3 p.m. And so we look forward to the event for Shape Up Bushwick, which of course is on Thursday, June 6th. Urban Square Park, 11 to 2, was set up at 10 and breakdown at 2. The only thing I'll add, we did get, since we last met, a couple of potential activities for Shape Up Bushwick, including NYC H2O, Mat Pilates, and NYC Disc Golf. So this we will finalize at our final planning meeting, but we're looking forward to having a great event.
All right, short and sweet. Youth and Education. Virgie. Oh.
Take your time, Virgie, but hurry up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Virgie Jones, Youth and Education Chairperson. And we had our meeting on April 22nd. The only thing we had on our agenda was we had the Riseboro to come in, and Riseboro Community Partnership. It was several of them there. They were all on Zoom. Elena Zulo, VP of Education. That Riseboro had provided adult literacy classes for the past 30 years, ESL, ABE, which is adult basic education, and GED. And there's some critical literacy courses, services to adults in the community. They are now faced with an almost elimination of all of these services. The nonprofit work they conduct is based on a response to an RFP that was solicited by the city or state. DYCD, New York City Department of Youth and Community Development, released an RFP in February 2024, asking providers in Bushwick to respond. Bushwick was divided into 2 sections, East and West. DYCD deemed that Bushwick East was legible for services and that Bushwick West was not. In addition, they decided that Bushwick was not legible for GED programs. They stated that they have 231 ABE and HSE students. Maria Vieira, VP of Community Affairs, said that they had met with both council members, Jennifer Gutierrez and Sandy Nurse, and Assembly Member Maritza Davila to explain their situations and find support and resolution. And they stated, then Andy Marte, the Associate Director, stated that 70% of nonprofits in New York did not qualify to receive funding in the community they serve. They are hearing that the reason might be based on the American Community Survey based on census data and Office of Racial Equity created by a city ballot. The sites funded must be in certain areas. However, they can service students from all areas. So Andy Marte thanked the community and board for allowing them to address these issues, and they are hoping that enough advocacy is gathered toward the mayor, local council people, and DYCD. The committee will write a letter to DYCD to find out why they took the funding away and to see if it could be resolved. And then we talked in the announcements, we talked about the ELA testing was computer-based in our schools for grades 5 and 8. And the testing had been completed, but the math test was still city-based. And we talked about Shape Up Bushwick would be on June 6th at Irving Square Park. And Gabe Nevins told us about an affair that was going on in Green Central Knoll Park on Sunday, April 21st. And it was chocolates that were lunch from a tree bucket. And the meeting was adjourned at 7:05. Thank you all.
Thanks, Virgie. If there's nothing else for committee reports, we will move on now to recommendations. Any committee chair with a recommendation, now is the time.
Can I make a recommendation in regards to Parks and Recreation Committee? Yes, it went through committee, but we hold their permit until we spoke with PD and all of them, and they're not getting any park play area. We were gonna issue them. They put the permits in, but we froze it through Parks. And we told them that, and we met up with them. So their hours of operations were lowered, so they complied with us, both leads. So I would like to make a recommendation just to approve these two parks. And if I know Barbara Jackson, she was with me, and we wanted, because they put in the permit and they had it, and we hold them from them because there were issues in that park, which is Bushwick Play Area. So PD went down, they've been coming down and addressing the issue. So they've been calling us and saying that when they're gonna get their playtime, because the lead started already and we were backtracked. So Real Guadalupe, which is the soccer lead, they lowered their hours from 9 to 5 on Sundays, on Monday to Thursday from 6 to 8. And then Super Kid is taking only 2 days, Friday and Saturday, from 6 to 8 and 9 to 5. Before they used to get 8 to 8. They don't want those hours because it's kind of rough. So they want to make sure that the kids can go home after 5 and not at 8 o'clock at night. So they cut their hours out. So those are the recommendations for both.
Is there a motion for the recommendation? Annette made a motion. Felix Ceballos, all in favor? Any opposed, any abstentions? So moved. Who's next?
Thank you.
Annette Spellin, Civic Public Safety and Clergy Committee recommends that, where is it? That, where's my notes? Oh. Okay, that Bleecker Street and Central Avenue be codenamed Monsignor John Paulus. And Eldridge Street between Knickerbocker and Wilson Avenues be codenamed Oshman Long, also known as Osh.
I would recommend a blanket vote. Is there a motion for, I guess someone else has to make a motion. So Zach makes a motion for a blanket. Is there a second? Desmond Monroe, all in favor? Any opposed, any abstentions? So moved. And now a motion on the recommendation. Christian Celeste Tate makes a motion on the recommendation. Is there a second? Second by Freddie Fowler, all in favor? Any opposed, any abstentions? So
Motion
moved.
carried.
Yep.
I hope when this goes to city council, they push it faster than we did.
We have other recommendations. We have other, We still have other recommendations, folks. We want to celebrate, but we want to get you out of here as soon as possible. Who's next? Committee chairs with recommendations.
If we could make a motion to blanket vote all of the PLC, the permits and licenses, committee recommendations.
Is there-
Make a motion for blanket vote.
Anne made a motion. Is there a second? Who? Say your name. Isa Abni. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved, blanket vote.
The amending, okay.
Committee recommendation that written with yes.
Edward Kopp has made a motion to approve the committee's recommendations. Is there a second? Desmond Monroe, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Joanna Bennett abstains. Anyone else? Seeing no one on Zoom, motion carries. Next. We have one recommendation pending. Youth and Education.
I make a motion that we write a letter to DYCD to find out why they took the funding away and to see if it can be restored for Riseboro Community Partners.
There's a motion by Felix Ceballos. Is there a second? Desmond Monroe, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? So, hold on. Millie, one abstention. Okay. Anyone else abstention? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Are there any other recommendations? Going once, going twice? Hearing none, we'll move on to old business. Any old business? Going once, going twice? New business? Any new business? Going once, going twice? None. Announcements, 1 minute. Just kidding. 1 minute, a minute and a half. Minute and a half, folks. It's still the same. Anyone that's here in person, please line up in front. We'll bring you the mic. Anyone on Zoom, please raise your hand and we will get to you. We're going to start on Zoom this time. We always start in person. I see Juan with his hand raised. Go ahead, Juan.
Hey everyone, quick announcements from my end. So our office has been informed of some food stamps scams. So we just want to let everyone know about it. If you do go through a scam, please let our office know and we could reach out to HRA. We're also doing graffiti removal. So if anyone has any locations that you want to do graffiti removal, please let me know and I'm happy to submit those. Trash forest update, we're still doing cleanups in the community. If you have any complaint related to trash, please let me know as well. We recently did remove a dumpster that was in Star Street and Wyckoff Avenue that was getting a lot of trash accumulated. And then just want to say thank you to everyone who came out to our Nightlife Summit Town Hall. Now we are going to be planning the Bushwick Town Halls and we'll keep you all updated regarding that Town Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. I see one hand on Zoom. I can't see the name though. Kim, who's on the bottom? Juanita James. Go ahead, Juanita.
Hi, thank you for inviting me again. My name is Juanita James with the Brooklyn Public Library. I just wanted to update you guys for the month of May. The city budget cuts, the mayor executive budget was released last month. It contains $60 million library cuts, which includes 16 million cuts at Brooklyn Public Library. So that can impact our operations, including further reducing days of the week that we are open and reduces branches from working from 6 to 5 days a week. It also decreases our potential for essential materials, programs, and collections. So we really need your support. So please visit investinlibraries.org and add your support. Second, ESOL class expansions. Brooklyn Public Library has doubled based upon the new immigrants that are coming in. And we have drop-in classes to provide English education for new arrivals in New York that focus on English skills for navigating and living in New York City. If you would like more information, please visit bklib.org/ESOL. And the library offers conversation groups and English classes that can come also with job certifications. Finally, May, as you spoke about, Older Adult Month, and the Brooklyn Public Library is celebrating Older American Month's celebration fair at Central, which passed, I think, which was May 17th, which is probably tomorrow, starting at 10. So come out for free festivities, demonstrations, music, dance, artists, and vineyards. And also the Brooklyn Public Library has a service for older adults that's offered all year round. That includes art classes, lectures, films, performances, and educational programs. And if you want more information for that, also go to bklynlibrary.org/older-adults. Thank you and have a good night and see you next
Okay,
month.
because we're getting ready to touch you out real quick.
Okay.
A minute and a half, folks. We will start timing you. All right. I don't see anyone else on Zoom. We'll go in person. Lacey?
Hey, everybody, Lacey Tauber, Brooklyn Borough President's Office. I'll be really fast. I want to say welcome to the new board members. Yay. And also just that we'll make sure that the other new board members know that they're supposed to come to the meeting before the swearing in, which brings me to the swearing in, which is going to be June 24th at 6:30. It's a reception, a swearing in ceremony, and orientation for new board members. It is mandatory for the members of the 2024 to 2026 cohort. Both first-time appointees and reappointees are expected to attend. Unfortunately, public members cannot join due to capacity issues. You have the option of attending in person at Brooklyn Borough Hall or remotely via WebEx. You should have gotten an email from our office with an RSVP link. So keep on the lookout for that. And just again, it's June 24th. You may have had another date sent to you, but this is the correct one. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amy Collado. I'm a tenant organizer with the Bushwick Housing Independence Project, or BHIP for short. Just promoting our monthly community meetings, which happen every last Wednesday at El Puente at the Leadership Center on 311 Central Avenue. This month is at May 29th, 6:30 to 8 p.m. The focus is going to be about the Rent Guidelines Board. So for tenants who live in rent stabilized apartments, we're doing a teach-in on like who they are and how they affect rent stabilized rents. And we'll also use that as an opportunity to do testimony prep so that when we go in June for the public hearing in Brooklyn, folks are ready to go up to the board and give them a piece of their mind for their 2 minutes. So my phone number is 929-324-7358, or you can reach me an email anytime, bhiporganize@gmail.com. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe from Friends of Irving Square Park. Just two things I'd like to flag. This Sunday is our monthly cleanup. We'll be doing reseeding, weeding, planting. You're all welcome to come and attend. If you have children that need community service hours, we're happy to sign off on that as well. So feel free to invite anybody and we're happy to support that. I'll also flag that Riseboro is bringing a farmer's market to Irving Square Park starting July 21st. We're actively talking to them about how to make it as productive for everybody. So if you have questions or concerns about that you'd like to raise to Riseboro, I'm happy to field those and I'll try to attend the park specific subcommittee meeting to bring those as well. And yeah, I'll be here for a few minutes. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Zachary Hendrickson, board member. Hi, everybody. We've heard a lot this evening about the city budget cuts, and you've heard me mention them several times in these meetings. I'm coming to you in this moment as a member of New York City Democratic Socialists of America. I am on the steering committee of a larger coalition called the People's Plan, which El Puente is. New York Communities for Change, New York Immigration Coalition, lots of organizations from all across the city. And what I want to make very clear to everyone is that there's going to city budget. And right now, all the things that we care about, that we fight for month in and month out in this community board, are standing to be cut. We're talking about hundreds of millions in cuts to education. We're talking about tens of millions of cuts to CUNY, to libraries, as we just heard, all of these other different things. The People's Plan Coalition has these postcards, which I have at the back of the room, that detail like 8 top line demands. I can share more information about them, but we're calling for capital investments in housing, like what Sandy Nurse, our councilwoman, was talking about, investments in public education and schools, pre-K, 3K, CUNY, libraries, health, housing, and social services, community safety and alternatives to incarceration, and to reduce some of the wasteful spending that we see in other agencies around the city. And so what we're asking folks to do is to sign these postcards. I will collect them and make sure that they get to the mayor. In the last month, I'll just say quickly, it was a citywide initiative. I've been working really hard on it, and we've been focused on a couple of other areas because we're lucky that our councilwoman, Sandy Nurse, is normally really good when it comes to the budget. But in the last month, we are trying to get as much pressure as possible. And so it may seem small, but signing one of these postcards is actually really impactful so that we can have voices from all across New York City saying that the people demand care, not more cuts, especially not at a time this does not go to. We have $4 billion in reserves right now. And so we are cutting vital social services from all across the city at a time when we have money sitting in the bank. And I don't think that's right. And I'm sure many of you in this room don't feel that way either. So if you're willing to sign one of these, I would really, really appreciate it. I know I'm almost at time. I will just say that, oh, is it off? Okay, sorry. I set my timer, but it wasn't loud enough. All right, bye, everybody.
I saw your timer off. Hello, my name is Jeff Oliver. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm working with an organization called Union Docs about a documentary about the 1977 blackout, the events, the systemic issues that led to things around the blackout. There's little flyers over here with my name, number, and email. Feel free to call me if you have any stories. I'd love to hear from community members. We've been talking to a lot of people in the community about systemic issues that led to the events around 77, the blackout, and hopefully it'll never happen again. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Maria Valdez from the Office of Senator Julia Salazar. Upcoming events, Core Community Resist will be coming to our office, providing tenant support. This coming June 3rd from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at our office, 212 Evergreen Avenue. We will have them every first Monday of every month. We will also have mobile constituent hours, June 8th at Queens Public Library from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And I will be providing more information if you're interested. Thank you.
Good evening, folks. I'll try to be as quick as possible. Jonathan from Congresswoman Velasquez's office. Yesterday, the Congresswoman toured a new MTA bus depot in the district to mark the delivery of 60 new electric buses into their fleet, made available by $70 million in federal funding, part of it by the bipartisan infrastructure bill. It's a major step forward in our journey to a more cleaner city and a transportation system that produces no emissions. Also, I just want to also point out that the Congresswoman penned a letter to the board regarding the co-naming of Bleecker Street and Central Avenue in honor of Father Powers, who's been a pillar of the Bushwick community. The letter's over there. I also want to mention that the Congresswoman will be hosting a virtual workshop in collaboration with CUNY and SUNY to inform our high school juniors and seniors about the recent changes made to FAFSA. As you recall, FAFSA was delayed for a couple of months. So the Congresswoman wants everyone to know and make sure that our students are prepared to apply for federal student aid. So please save the date. I'm going to share it with the board, but save the date, June 1st. It's a Saturday from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. All students, everyone here, we have students in our families. Make sure they save the date. We'll send out the information so they can get that good information. Lastly, since we're on the topic of federal student aid, I just want to share that the Congresswoman and other members of Congress penned a letter to the House Appropriations Committee calling for the increased maximum amount of Pell Grants for students from $7,395 to $13,000. That they're calling for that to be the maximum amount that students can receive. This will undoubtedly benefit our low and middle income families who are pursuing higher education. With that being said, If you need any assistance, feel free to call our office at 718-599-3658 or email me. Thank you.
Hey, folks, Dustin Sunborn again, Arts, Culture, and Technology Committee for CB4. We're still taking submissions for the archive project. The fellow is basically done. I will personally make sure all these get in. We're going to be debriefing and working on next steps, where we're going to hand this off to, whether we're going to take over ourselves for our next meeting 2 weeks from today, May 29th. See you all there.
Good evening, everybody. CB4 member Christopher Graham. Just want to follow up on the thing I've been telling you about, our HBCU college tour. So the college tour, it went down. And so we had 30 students on the bus, and we had 5 on-the-spot acceptances to college. So that's a big deal. On top of that, we also had a group of like 6 students who weren't even considering going to college. They all wanted to go to the military, but after going on the trip, they've all submitted applications and their acceptances are pending. So it's about exposure, exposure, exposure. And so we'll be back next year and spread the word. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm speaking in reference to Community Dialogue NYC. We're very proud that we were actually accessed into the high schools and junior high schools where we're giving leadership classes. It's very important that we give leadership classes, especially when it has with self-discovery programs and goal mapping and self and like stress management and wellness, especially since COVID. A lot of our children went through a lot of stress and depression and all that stuff. So it's very important. We're certified in mental health first respond. So if you know anyone struggling, if you know any kids, if you want this and if you want training for your staff, we're more than welcome to do it. Thank you so much.
Hey there, last but not least, Jason Gers, new board member, just here to announce a tree care event with New York City Parks on Saturday, May 25th. They're going to be over by Bushwick Playground. So that's from 12 to 2 p.m. and you can meet at the corner of Putnam and Irving Avenue. If you want to register, I have a link, but I think you can also just come and help us out.
All right.
I got the last one. I got 2 last ones here they gave me, and they threw it at me real quick. Early in the morning, 8 o'clock. So if you guys want to run, El Puente got the health wellness fair. They're gonna wind up. They're coming to Central Avenue first, and then they're gonna wind up in Maria Hernandez Park. There, they're gonna have activities. It's May 18th, Saturday in Maria Hernandez Park. So don't forget, and y'all gotta be there at 8 o'clock in the morning if y'all gonna run. All right? So all of y'all gonna be there. Not only that, after she made us run on the 18th, guess what's gonna happen? Y'all gonna come Friday, the 31st, from 1 to 7, and you're gonna donate blood. We really need it. We really need blood. So please, help El Puente. The bus is gonna be there. We need your blood. All right? You got that? And then, don't forget, June 6th. If you're not sure, listen, you ran, you gave out blood, and now you're coming to get your body in shape. Shape Up Bushwick event, June 6th from 11 to 2 in Irving Square Park. Be there, be square. Thank you. How'd that go?
All right, that concludes announcements this evening, folks. We're going to go on to our second roll call. Board members, please be ready. Linda Whitfield, Jerry Valentine.
And take all
Present.
your junk.
Ben Tucker, James Stewart, Annette Spellin, Dustin Sonborn, Barbara Smith, Bernardina Shell is excused, Milagros Sandoval, Eliseo Ruiz, Raul Rubio, Caitlin Penner, Carlos Ortiz, Zuma Navoa.
Present.
Ramika Nico Barnes, Alex Moreno.
Present.
Thank you. Desmond Monroe. Cullen. Freddie Madison. Christine Meldon. Edward Kopp. Nicholas Kaplan. Luisa Jose is excused. Tara Jones Thomas. Reggie Jones.
Did you get Barbara
Bishop
Smith?
Johnson. Who's speaking on Zoom?
Did you
Yes,
get
I got you,
Barbara?
Barbara. I
All
got
right,
you.
thank you.
Tanisha Honeygan. Deborah Hicks. Zachary Hendrickson.
Sorry, Celeste, this is Tanisha present.
Got you, Tanisha. Thank you. Ann Guiney. Christopher Graham. Jason Gares. Joanna Fuentes. Freddie Fowler. Cecilia Fabian. Karina Dodd. Christian Tate. Felix Ceballos. Robert Camacho. Makiba Brown Elaine is excused. Joanna Bennett. Melissa Bellardo. Jacqueline Becerra. Stephanie Anderson.
Here.
Issa Abney. Motion to adjourn. Joanna Bennett makes a motion, second by Joanna Fuentes. All in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Good night, everyone.